Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1122 of the War News Stream. It's good to see you all once again. And today we have massive news out of the Middle East that Iranian forces are escalating their attacks on Western forces. Also, there was a massive explosion on a Russian gas pipeline today in mainland Russia, and also a possible Russian attack on British infrastructure that's currently being investigated. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world as we've had significant developments in practically every direction once again today, as Ukrainian armed forces have been able to make more ground inside the Belgorod region, moving on forward towards Grafovka and also towards the small town of Prolese near to the Belgorod border. It now appears that they have an incredibly large foothold within the region that they could be able to take advantage of later on in the offensive operations within the Belgorod Oblast. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation has confirmed that the Ukrainian armed forces are supporting their attack, with ATACMS missiles being launched into Belgorod Oblast at this point, showing that the United States of America at some point has resupplied Ukraine's ATACMS missiles storage or supply cache, and it now appears that the Ukrainians are using that in their current offensive within that direction at this time. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation has dealt with another significant airfield attack today near to Marinovka, as another ammunition depot at the Marinovka airfield was attacked and critically damaged during Ukrainian drone attack, once again resulting in a major mushroom cloud of an explosion and possibly significant damage to the airfield. And this is coming as our actual damage assessments are now arriving out of the airport or the airbase at Engels, as we have now been able to confirm that 2 Russian pilots were killed in the blast at a bare minimum, and it appears that one of the semi-hardened sheltered facilities appears to have taken significant damage and also was the epicenter of the blasts that have leveled a significant area of the airfield and the surrounding area of the city of Engels. We also have gotten some very major news that the Russian Federation has now sent Shoigu, the former Minister of Defense, once again to North Korea to try and secure more military support and aid from the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, aka North Korea. We have also been able to hear that the USS Harry Truman is now going to be joined by the USS Carl Vinson, which is currently being deployed into the direction of the Middle East, and now increasing the amount of carrier strike groups available in the area to 2 instead of just 1. We have also been able to hear that U.S. airstrikes against Yemen have continued today, while the Israelis have now announced that a successful airstrike within the Gaza Strip has now killed the intelligence head of Hamas. We have also been able to hear that Israeli airstrikes have targeted some terrorist forces near to the area of Palmyra in Syria, and we have also been able to hear that the Israelis once again intercepted more Houthi missiles that were fired towards Israel within the southern direction by an Arrow 3 anti-ballistic missile interceptor system. We have also been able to hear of an odd occurrence inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, where a 4.6 magnitude earthquake hit near to the area of Isfahan, and specifically the town of Natanz, where nuclear research and development is currently being conducted by the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is unknown what the source of the earthquake is, but there was one incredibly close to the nuclear research and development facilities. Meanwhile, inside of Turkey, we can see that the civil unrest has continued to reach even higher and higher levels than the days prior, as it appears that Erdogan's government is meeting a large amount of resistance after the arrest of the mayor of Istanbul due to a supposed anti-corruption campaign. Meanwhile, we are also hearing that British authorities are investigating the substation outage near to the London Heathrow, which has led to 1,315 flights having to be diverted or canceled as a possible sabotage by the Russian Federation, while we've also been hearing news that the Germans have now seized the Everton oil tanker, which is a part of the Russian Shadow Fleet, which appears to be a major diplomatic escalation against the Russian Federation by the Federal Republic of Germany. Meanwhile, we also have some really interesting news outside of the United States that the new 6th generation fighter of the U.S. Air Force has now been unveiled and is being dubbed the F-47. But nevertheless, we have a lot of news to be covering today. Quite a significant amount, as a matter of fact. And we hope that y'all are ready, because news days these days just aren't small. We don't have days anymore where it's just the Ukraine war. There usually is a lot of things happening in the periphery around the entirety of the world that we also have to cover, and today is absolutely no exception. But moving on into our major news of the day, we have been able to hear that the armed forces of Ukraine have conducted more successful drone attacks throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation, resulting in significant damage, once again, to Russian aviation assets, Russian warfighting abilities, and not only that, targeting and hitting critical infrastructure once more, which is a mainstay of Ukrainian drone attacks throughout the entirety of the war. We have been able to see that near to the city of Volgograd, to its west, near to the town of Marinovka, lies the Oktyabrskyi airfield. This airfield is being used somewhat significantly by the Russian air forces, particularly Su-34 fighter bombers, which have been used a large deal inside of the conflict in Ukraine, and it appears that the armed forces of Ukraine have targeted and caused significant damage to this facility in just the past few hours alone. As a major explosion rocked the area, it appears to be very close in size to the explosion that we saw at Volgograd, and we are now assuming that there may be significant damage to the Oktyabrskyi airfield, much like there is significant damage to the Engels airbase as well at this point. We can see that the facilities of the Oktyabrskyi or Marinovka airfield is once again incredibly Spartan, much like the airbase facilities at Engels airbase further on up in the northeast of the Volga River region, down here in the southern area of Russia. This airbase facility doesn't have a large amount of barracks that we can visibly see at the facility. We are believing that most of the actual air crews stay inside the town of Oktyabrskyi itself and then commute into work to the airbase on a bus, because there are absolutely no facilities at this airfield to house any troops or personnel on site. However, there is a decent amount of information that we can gather from this base before we start to analyze the explosion. For one, it appears that most fuel storage is somewhere, and I want to make sure that we're getting this correct, somewhere around the actual tarmac of the facility, which is fairly prototypical for that of a Russian airfield. We also understand that ammunition storage is done pretty much in the area just north of the fuel tank storage, somewhere within this area, although we couldn't tell exactly where because this satellite footage isn't up to date, and it is showing a decent amount of areas that were still under construction as Russian air operations were being greatly increased out of this airfield. We don't know exactly what part of this ramparted area area the ammunition storages were in. We can also see some basic aircraft maintenance facilities, incredibly basic ones, within this area of the airfield on its western side. And we can also see more logistical support stations over here, and also some more open air ammunition storage, which is pretty crazy because if I'm seeing this correctly, these look like KH-29 laser guided air to ground missiles and also R-77s that are being stored in the wide open without any kind of actual shelter or even a tarp over them.
That's crazy, honestly, just like storing them out in the open like that. It's literally begging to get smashed.
Yeah, it's begging to get hit. I mean, like, the other kinds of ordinances could not fit in this area. I'm sure that they're probably over in this area that was being built out. But that is still shocking to see missiles being sat out in the wide open, especially ones that look to be the size of a KH-29. Which, by the way, KH-29s are not small at all. Let me go show you all a KH-29 missile. And let's see. Here we go. That's a KH-29. You can really tell that it's a KH-29 just by the raw size of the thing. KH-29s are not small, and these appear to be about the size of a KH-29 missile. So it's a little bit wild to see that they have them just sitting out in the wide open, subject to the elements, subject to corrosion, and the humidity changes that will be present in this area. Pretty wild to see, but beyond that, we can also see minimal facilities here to the very western side of the facility, which once again seem to house different components and parts. And it looks like a lot of the wooden boxes are just stacked out into the wide open again. So once again, not really a lot in the way of facilities. But more importantly, what makes this airfield a priority target for the armed forces of Ukraine for it to have been hit last night is the fact that this is operating a fighter-bomber wing out of it that is using Su-34s. Su-34s, even at this point in the conflict, see a significant amount of use by the Russian Air Force, and they have been used primarily to drop fab glide bomb kits in the past, and even still, while glide bombs have pretty much gone completely out of style, they are used for indirect artillery support missions, firing off large volleys of unguided rockets towards Ukrainian positions in an attempt to suppress them. This makes any airbase that is housing an Su-34 fighter bomber or an Su-34 fighter bomber wing a priority target for the armed forces of Ukraine, and one that has to be singled out and hit immediately. And we were able to see that it was hit quite heavily just over today. This is a clip taken from a pretty decent ways away. We don't know the exact direction that this was from, but we were able to confirm that the cameraman was looking at the Marinovka airfield, or the Oktyabrskyi airfield, depending on what you want to call it. And we can see that as he zooms in here in a second, that is a significant mushroom cloud of a massive detonation that occurred at the airfield and is rising from it as the cameraman is filming. I'm going to pause it right there because this is about the best that you can see it in the clip. You can see in the kind of a hazy cloud cover, this slightly grayer mass of clouds, which you can see right here. That isn't a slightly grayer cloud. That's actually the mushroom cloud of the explosion that came from the Marinovka airfield after it was hit by some sort of Ukrainian drone. It's a very significant mushroom cloud. We are assuming that this is about the same size and volume of the mushroom cloud that we saw at the Engels airbase just the other day. And we are assuming, much like the Engels airbase, that this explosion, especially if it's this close, either on the western side of the facility here at the open air munition storage, which we can see right there, or if it's in the area that appears that it was being brand new constructed at some point in the middle part of 2024 when the satellite picture was taken, this explosion was probably in a close enough place to the tarmac that significant damage was caused to supporting facilities at the airbase that would keep the air wing operational and also the aircraft themselves, meaning that this airfield, much like Engels, may have been knocked out of operation entirely because of this explosion and the absolute scale of it. Once again, we do not know the actual explosive mass in the explosions. We can only take a rough shot at it, but we were assuming at this point that there was most likely 60,000 to 90,000 pounds of ordnance that exploded at the Oktyabrskyi airfield in that explosion that we saw on film. But moving on from that and on further up into the area of Engels, we actually have been able to hear of some significant news within this area as well, especially about the follow-up damage assessments at the Engels Air Base from last night. Many of y'all will know that it appeared that there was some sort of an explosion that occurred at an ammunition storage depot at the airfield. This airfield houses a large amount of high-caliber ordnance and explosives, considering that the Russians strategic bomber fleet largely operates out of this airbase to conduct their attacks on the state of Ukraine, meaning really any air-launched missiles are usually loaded onto their aircraft here at Engels Air Base. The explosion was so large, we did assume that there was most likely severe damage to the aircraft at the airbase, and not only that, probably a significant amount of casualties of vital personnel on the ground. We were able to confirm overnight, well, really on into the early hours of today, that it appears that a soft shelter was actually hit near to the hardened shelter facility. Some people have confused this to be the hardened shelters themselves, but they necessarily aren't. I'm actually going to show y'all where this was and the actual damage that we're looking at here. So these are the two major ammunition storage facilities at the airfield. There are smaller ones here into the northern area of the facility, near to the fueling tanks, and also another minuscule munitions facility over here as well. Once again, these are wildly small and really do not register on the scale as far as the explosions were concerned. So really these two ammunition storage facilities are the important ones. And we were able to see that yesterday we had it largely narrowed down to one of the two. It was either the actual hardened sheltered facility itself, which is right over here. You can see it's surrounded by these interesting kind of, I guess you could say outhouse buildings, if you want to call them that. But the hardened shelters themselves actually store the munitions that the Russian Federation would use at this airfield. You can actually see some of these munitions laid out on carts here in front of one of the hardened shelters, most likely to be carried away at a later date to be loaded onto the bombers. But it appears that the actual facility they hit that went up into the catastrophic explosions that we saw yesterday was actually this facility just a little bit to the east. This one actually doesn't have any hardened shelters. It actually has soft shelters throughout. You can actually see that in some places it appears that they had some sort of universal containers or shipping containers placed out to load the munitions in and then just keep them for safekeeping for later. Apparently this is their overflow facility for the munitions brought to the airfield. That's at least what we're assuming, and it seems as though it was jam-packed with explosives. It appears that
I wonder why they would do that. Why would they put some in like a soft shelter or like a shipping container when they've literally left some out on the base in other places?
Probably budgeting reasons. Once again, the Russian Federation before the war in Ukraine had a minuscule military budget. To put it in perspective for some of y'all, some people say that the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has a military budget that is completely infeasible for the kind of defense that the United Kingdom would have to conduct for itself. And the United Kingdom had a military spending budget pre-war even of $70 billion annually. In comparison, the Russian Federation before the war in Ukraine had a military spending budget of approximately $50 to $55 billion per year, which is about $25 billion short of even the United Kingdom, which has been lauded in the West for not having enough military spending to be able to upkeep their armed forces at a large enough size. To put it into perspective, the Russians were working on absolutely no money. We believe that these hardened shelters, I couldn't really get this definitively today, these hardened shelters may have actually been built during the time of the Soviet Union, and this additional overflow facility may have been built in the post-Soviet Russian Federation sometime in the early to late 2000s to support Russian air operations in the Georgian War that lasted for a couple of months, and also possibly other Russian military operations happening within the southern regions of Russia, for example, the future war in Ukraine, which this may have been built in preparation for. Once again, they didn't have the money to work with, but they still needed a place to store the munitions. So they decided instead of building hardened shelters, which would be incredibly expensive, they would just build a soft shelter overflow facility instead. And it appears to have cost them dearly. Here's what the facility looked like a couple of months before the explosion occurred yesterday, and here's what it looks like after. Most of the facility has been destroyed.
Man, charred the ground and everything.
Yeah, it charred the ground and look at this also. Notice up here in the top right, Matthew, near to the December 2024 mark, notice the buildings up there. Now notice them in the aftermath. Most of them have been leveled.
Yeah, they really have. It looks like pure devastation over there. That's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy because it's confirming by every single step of the measure. The explosion was strong enough to actually level the surrounding city of Engels just outside of the facility, and we believe that there is a decent amount of ground in between those two areas. And just to measure from what we believe is the epicenter of the explosion to the closest houses, that's about 1,000 feet away, and it appears that the devastation went about an entire 3/4 of a mile into this area, meaning that most of this suburb is most likely completely destroyed at this point from the shockwave of the explosion. If we were to assume that Russian bombers were anywhere close to this area of the facility, heading in the other direction, if they were anywhere near to these loading facilities here, where weapons may be loaded onto some of the bombers, then that means that there could have been a decent amount of aircraft that were actually damaged in the process of this explosion that happened yesterday. And we have a reason to believe that there were some Russian strategic bombers that were incredibly close to the site of the explosion, or at least within a mile of the explosion, because we were able to hear that a Russian pilot and a co-pilot did get killed yesterday from flying shrapnel that came from the explosion. According to a direct quote, as a result of the attack on Engels airfield, there are casualties. 2 pilots of the Tu-95 MS bomber were killed, Ilya Baikin and Evgeny Sidorov. There is also a possibility that the plane was seriously damaged by shrapnel. These are the first obituaries that we've gotten, and we're assuming that there will be far more. Most importantly, however, 2 pilots were killed in the process of this explosion, and that may be leading us to believe that a Tu-95 bomber, which is a fairly important bomber for the Russian Federation even in the present day, may have been somewhere near to this far side of the eastern area of the airfield when the explosion occurred, and these pilots were possibly inside of the aircraft itself when it was showered by shrapnel, and they were almost killed instantaneously in the blast and the wave of shrapnel that came with it from the soft-shelled facilities, which quite literally turned into shrapnel themselves, and then went flying into every single direction, possibly causing significant casualties not only for the airfield but for the surrounding suburbs as well. In short, this blast was devastating and will most likely be crippling the Russian Federation's strategic bomber fleet, and also will be crippling possibly the Russian Air Force itself, as they've lost a significant amount of vital personnel that would operate these Russian strategic bombers in their air attacks against Ukraine, and also in their readiness standards for a possible nuclear standoff or a conventional conflict with the West. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been talking about the intelligence that we've been getting today from the Engels airbase and the damage assessments that have come out that are clearly damning at this point about the real damage that actually happened at Engels. And it appears that several pilots were killed at a minimum at this point, and there has been extensive damage to the munitions facilities at the airfield, and also possibly other supporting infrastructure that would keep these bombers operational. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts about what this will mean for the Russian Air Force moving on into the future. And a lot of people have said that it will inhibit Russian air operations, a lot like vodka inhibits the average Russian within the surrounding area. Some others have said that it might be, but not really a significant damper to Russian Air Force activities. Others have said that it will not affect Russia's air campaigns, and Russia's air campaigns will move forward largely unfazed, and some others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well, considering that this is the most devastating hit we've ever seen at any singular Russian airbase over the entirety of the war?
Yeah, so it definitely was a very devastating one, with it taking out literally a neighborhood right next to the airfield, which is crazy to see that footage yesterday. But 59% of the audience said it will inhibit Russian air operations, while 20% said maybe so, somewhat, but not really. And 13% said it will not affect Russia's air campaigns. And the fact that the 2 pilots were taken out, that's a pretty bad sign right there that there was a lot of damage from this attack. Once again, we don't have the exact details about the aircraft that were damaged, but I would assume after seeing the massive shockwave ripping through that neighborhood, which was just literally, I think, a mile or less than a mile away from the area of the explosion, I would assume that the airfield has been severely damaged as well, and also the aircraft that had just arrived there literally right before the explosion. I'm sure they've gotten debris either flung at the aircraft, or the shockwave has severely damaged them one way or another, because we don't know where the pilots were when they were eliminated, but I assume they were nearby, probably nearby to the aircraft. So I will say it probably will inhibit Russian air operations out of this particular base, but not in a humongous way. It'll affect it in somewhat, but not all the way. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this will have a significant effect on the Russian Air Force's abilities to launch air-launched missiles. However, over most prior months, we have seen that the Russian strategic bomber fleet has been utilized very poorly over those months, most likely due to a lack of usable munitions in the first place, meaning that this may have been some of the remaining munitions that they had left that could have been used at the airbase were just wiped out in the explosion. To let some of y'all know the trends that we've we've seen in Russian air attacks over the course of the war. Over the first 2 years of the conflict, we did see that the Russian strategic bomber fleet was used to a fairly significant degree in the air attacks that would be conducted against Ukraine, firing a wide variety of cruise and ballistic missiles off of these aircraft. These missiles were usually the largest and most dangerous incoming targets that Ukrainian air defense had to deal with. Usually the interception rates on these were somewhat lower, around 55 to 60%, while interceptions against Russian drones were quite higher at 90%. However, the Russian Federation's abilities to produce these new missiles has drastically decreased over the course of the war due to the sanctions, and also due to the fact that Russian industry is not refined enough to be able to produce some of the advanced computer components that help these ballistic missiles and cruise missiles be able to make it to their target. For this reason, we've seen that the dominance of the Russian Air Force in these airstrikes has started to become significantly decreased, and in the present day, we have seen that over at least the past 5 months, Russian aviation involvement in Ukrainian airstrike attacks, if you want to call them that, has been incredibly small. Nevertheless, the damage caused to the Russian strategic bomber fleet may not be incredibly beneficial for Ukraine's air defense, at least in the present day, but it will be crippling for the Russian Federation's larger conventional standoff abilities on into the future. If we were to assume that the Russian Federation does survive the conflict intact with Vladimir Putin in charge, we may see that the Russian Federation will still have larger ambitions to conduct a conventional war against NATO, or possibly to continue to conduct some form of expansive actions elsewhere around the world. If that was the case, the Russian Federation would need to have these strategic bombers for standoff purposes, or really for their use of longer range weaponry, which would no longer be available to them because, once again, the Russian Federation does not really possess the ability to produce any of these aircraft, at least in the present day, as most Russian industry at best might be able to refit or possibly produce a couple of Tu-160s a year, but that is the absolute bare minimum. At this point, we believe the machining and tooling to produce Tu-95s in their full entire airframe along with spare parts is no longer possible in the Russian Federation. So we believe that this will have a significant impact on Russian strategic abilities worldwide, but it isn't going to have that much of an impact, at least in the Ukraine war currently. But moving on from the Engels airbase, we have been able to hear, speaking of air news, that there has been another major development today that has probably been one that a lot of people really didn't see coming, because I personally didn't see it coming, because I thought that the F-35 was the best thing since sliced bread. And the F-35 is a pretty cool aircraft. Everyone in the world wants a piece of it. Everyone in the world has actually dedicated a little piece to this thing. But the F-35 is produced by Lockheed Martin. It is the most advanced 5th generation aircraft in the entirety of the world, and it's also the only one that's multi-role as well. Most, by the way, to share this with all y'all, this is something incredibly interesting. Practically all stealth aircraft that have ever been made in the world that are of a 5th generation design are usually purebred air superiority fighters, meaning that they are only able to engage in air-to-air warfare, and they're not able to engage in multi-role warfare, where the aircraft could be outfitted for air-to-air, air-to-ground missions, or mixed missions, depending on the objectives of the Air Force or the objectives of the battlefield at that time. The F-35 is the only aircraft in the world that is capable of doing so, and not only that, it is the only vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that is also supersonic capable simultaneously. It pretty much is a jack of all trades and a master of every, which is very rare to see in the aircraft world, but it already appears that plans have been made and are already being announced at this point to pretty much replace almost every single air superiority fighter that's currently in service, and possibly to even challenge the position of the F-35 well on into the future, and already nearly at this point relegated into being the F-10 of the the A-10 Warthog of the future. Because we've been able to hear from the Office of the President of the United States today and the U.S. Secretary of Defense that a new aircraft, the first 6th generation aircraft in the U.S. military, will be introduced into service by the end of the decade. We didn't actually get to see a real picture of it. It was once again an artist's rendition of the aircraft, but we were able to hear that the F-47 has now been unveiled to the public as the actual aircraft that will become the next generation air dominance program's actual candidate to start filling in the air supremacy role inside of the U.S. Air Force. This is specifically an air superiority fighter, meaning that it will not be taking over the role of the F-35 Lightning, but considering its incredibly advanced abilities, at least from what's being stated currently, we do believe that it will be completely replacing the F-15, which has been in service for nearly 50 years, well actually over 50 years at this point, and it also will be replacing the F-16 and any other aircraft that have been involved, even is somewhat slightly in air superiority. It will also be replacing the F-22 as well, although the F-22 is probably going to be retired a couple of years before the F-47 even comes into complete service. Nevertheless, the F-47 is an incredibly interesting aircraft, at least according to its advertised on the 10 abilities, and it is something that is a little bit interesting in itself. We have been able to hear this. Go ahead.
I gotta say that the artist, I think, might have copped out a little bit because they gave us like the snout. They painted the snout or whatever with the little rendering here, but we don't see anything else. It's like, also, what did they give the artist to actually like make this rendering? Like, surely they had to see the entire aircraft. So, you know, the snout looks pretty decent, but that's all we get to see.
We only get to see the snoot. But one thing that is interesting, though, a couple of things that we can get from the concept, I suppose, is that it does have forward-leading canards, which is an incredibly interesting kind of an addition, because you usually see these on the Rafale of France, the Eurofighter Typhoon, the multinational European cooperation to create the aircraft, and also you usually see these on the Gripen as well. We've actually never seen a U.S. aircraft in service that has used forward-leading canards before ever. So this will be the first aircraft in U.S. military service that uses forward-leading canards, which is incredibly interesting in its own right. We generally believe that it'll look something like this. So it almost is the Chinese Dorito chip in design and shape, at least from what we can understand right now. And we also understand that this aircraft will not be capable of conducting multi-role missions. It will be an air superiority fighter, pretty much a purebred in that sense, much like the F-22 Raptor was during its time. There are a couple of things, though, that have been stated about it that are incredibly interesting. For one, the aircraft is going to be the first one to use AI assistance, if you want to call them that, in the skies, meaning that there will be a pilot inside of this aircraft, this F-47, but he will also have, at the same time flying with him, an entire squadron of AI-operated drone aircraft, fairly similar to his in operational abilities, that he'll be able to use wherever need be on the battlefield, and will be able to issue orders to them, much like they are actual pilots themselves, meaning that the force projection of the Air Force is greatly increased while keeping the amount of air crews or pilots involved in those operations at the same numbers they currently are, but once again, greatly expanding the air superiority abilities of the Air Force at the exact same time. Another thing that's incredibly interesting about this aircraft, at least according to what we were able to hear, is that from what we are generally understanding, I want to make sure that we are able to read a little bit about this because there wasn't really a lot stated about it today at all, is that, let's see, yeah, there's the AI collaborative combat aircraft. Let's see here, its selection, let's see,
You know, it's kind of fascinating the manufacturer they chose for this aircraft because I believe Lockheed was, I'd heard for a long time that Lockheed was the forerunner for the actual manufacture of this new 6th generation fighter jet. But for some reason at the last minute, they decided to go with Boeing. Which is kind of interesting because Boeing has not had the best track record over the last couple of years. In fact, they've had a very rocky path right now with all their planes and things like that. They've had sort of some issues here and there. So the fact that Boeing was chosen, I wonder if the U.S. government was basically throwing them a bone a little bit and letting them have a break to try to, you know, recoup their losses over the years.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Maybe that would be the case. But I don't really know with that, honestly, because I think that might be an attempt to save Boeing with what they're doing right here, like you're saying, for the large part, because Boeing has gone through rough times in the past. Really, to be honest with y'all, Boeing only survived the late 50s and the 1960s because of U.S. Intercontinental ballistic missile contracts that they had with the U.S. military. Boeing was getting murdered in the domestic sales market during that time, and if it wasn't for the U.S. military contracts, which pretty much preferred Boeing pretty much almost in a form of a bias, Boeing probably wouldn't have been able to survive into the 70s to then merge with the more successful McDonnell Douglas and create the Boeing that we know today. So That is something interesting in itself. We will be interested to see if they ever unveil the F-47 to the public here very soon. We're expecting that they will not be. We did hear that the time that this aircraft will be introduced into service is about 4 years from now in 2029, so we probably will not be seeing this aircraft in the public anytime soon, like we saw the B-21 Raider, which they showed and then rolled right back into a hangar, and then we saw nothing of it since then.
Man, that B-21 was juicy. Like, honestly, I was more excited for the B-21 than this current 6th gen fighter right here. But actually, what I'm more fascinated by is not the actual 6th gen fighter itself. I'm more fascinated by the drone swarm that's going to come with it, because they didn't show us any pictures of that or any idea behind what the concept's going to look like. But the fact that a fighter jet can control basically a vast array and fleet of these attack drones in a massive swarm, that is something that is way more fascinating to me than the actual fighter jet capabilities themselves.
It is an interesting thing. Honestly, I would like to know a lot about the drones as well, because they didn't show any of them. But I'll be entirely honest with you, Matthew. The results are probably going to be incredibly underwhelming. It's probably going to look exactly like the F-47. It's just that it's not going to have a cockpit, and instead that's going to be a solid part of the fuselage instead. That probably would be
You
what
think
it looks
so?
like. Yeah, because that's usually what aircraft like that generally look like. Like, if there's anything that's close to it that we currently have in service, whenever they create a drone variant of it, they just get rid of the glass canopy and just cover it over and pretty much make it a part of the fuselage itself. So I would assume that that's probably
Oh,
what it will look like.
okay. So you're assuming that the drones are going to be the same size as the fighter jet.
Oh yeah, because they would have to have these same abilities to be able to match exactly what the actual pilot in the F-47 is doing. So it would have to have the same thrust, it would have to have the same maneuverability, it would have to have the same weapons payloads. Because if you're getting one guy up into the air in this F-47, the actual manned one, and then all of his wingmen are, well, all of his AI wingmen are smaller aircraft that may not be as fast, may not be as agile, and are not carrying a similar payload, then it kind of is defeating the purpose of having the AI aircraft in the first place, because they're all cannon fodder pretty much as far as the modern air battle would be concerned.
You see, I was personally thinking, because I don't think we have the details about it just yet. I was thinking when they said a drone swarm, it sounded like very large numbers, and I would assume they're not making a humongous amount of drone style planes just like this F-47 to go along with it. I was thinking that maybe they were talking about, like, not necessarily like Mavic style drones or that size, maybe 2 or 3 times the size of a Mavic, and a swarm of those controlled by the fighter jet pilot that flies this aircraft. That's what I was thinking.
Well, yeah, but a Mavic-sized drone or anything close to that would have a pretty hard time keeping near Mach speeds with this thing. So this thing would go take off, and then the Mavics take off from the airfield with it, and then this thing is out of communications range with them in, say, 5 minutes. So that wouldn't really be a possible thing, because this thing would literally have to spin circles above its Mavic swarm to keep running them. So the drones are there's probably going to be a squadron of F-47, well, drone F-47s for every piloted one. So there will be this piloted one, and then possibly 3 to 4 wingmen, I would assume. They'll be AI operated, and the main pilot will be able to issue orders or largely count on that AI swarm to be with him and to be able to conduct air operations, air superiority air operations, that is, alongside the actual lead pilot.
Yeah, whichever the case it is, if it is like just the same size of the F-47 and just a drone style aircraft, then that works too. But I think that what was in my head was I was hoping that they were going to create something along the lines of disposable, more attritable style drones, because we're seeing that the war in Ukraine between Russia and them is relying on those drones quite heavily. And I know that can be a separate thing, but that would be actually extremely effective if they could make some type of drone that not necessarily could keep up with the F-47, but could generally match the speed to some extent, maybe a jet powered drone of some sort, because that is possible, and have large numbers of them where they could literally direct them in to do strikes, mass strikes on certain areas where the pilot designates.
That would be pretty cool. I think they're probably going to be working on some sort of like a hyperlink system, a modernized version of it for these sorts of aircraft where AI can be integrated with them automatically. But it's going to be very interesting to see how that works, and also how they're going to stop that from possibly being interfered with in the future. But beyond that, it's an interesting aircraft, and a lot of people have been weighing in their opinions on it. And interesting enough, also another thing that we've heard is that apparently test flights have been conducted with the F-47 since the year 2020. So it appears that it finally is being publicly unveiled, but it will be put into service really at the end of this decade. Beyond that, A lot of people have been saying that it appears to be pretty good. Others are saying that they need more details. A very small group of people are saying it sounds very underwhelming, and some are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so 40% said it appears to be very good, while 37% said we need more details, and 12% said it sounds very underwhelming. And honestly, we know very little about it right now. Like the enforcer said, it has been flying around above our skies here in the United States for at least 5 years. We've been told that by the Department of Defense. And I believe this aircraft has been photographed before, I think a year ago, and it was actually flying over the desert. But it was a very blurry photograph of it, and you could tell it was a general shape of a 6th-gen fighter, like the one we see here in the rendering, but not exactly clear what it was. But I think it has been spotted, and it's been flying for 5 years. So they've been testing it for quite some time, and we don't know if that was the Boeing version, but it probably was based on the shape. But I would say that based on what we know, which is very little, it appears to be very good. The drone capabilities is a very good advancement because, of course, the drones are a big thing between Russia and Ukraine, and that's the most modern war that we have to use as a reference. So it looks like drones are the future, and it looks like they're implementing drones into this new fighter jet design as well. So I'm with the 40%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I'm with the 40%. This thing sounds incredibly impressive off the bat. I'm assuming that it will probably be wildly impressive when we actually see it put into service and its abilities, because one thing that we should always know is that when it comes to air power, the U.S. never ceases to impress with what we're able to roll out. The F-35 is the best aircraft in the world by far as the jack of all trades is concerned. The F-22 is by far the best stealth air superiority fighter currently in the world right now. And not only that, the F-15, which has been in service for well over 50 years, is still unmatched for a 4th-generation air superiority fighter. Really, people have been able to finally match the F-15's abilities, but that was nearly 30 to 40 years after the F-15 was put into service in the late 70s. So with that in mind, we know that this thing is probably going to be doing incredibly well, because it would be a little bit odd for us to produce an aircraft that would do poorly. And also, really quickly, I gotta say this, military research and development has nothing to do with the president at all. I don't know why some people are trying to make it sound like Trump's the one who built this thing. This was being produced by Boeing well before 2020, when it even took its first flight, and then it took its first flight in 2020, and it's been tested and developed even further under the last president's administration. The military has nothing to do with politics, and especially weapons research and development, so I don't know why a lot of people are trying to make it into a political thing about this aircraft and say that it sucks like a Cybertruck, because this has been in development for probably at least 10 years at this point, probably from about 2015 up till the present day, meaning that its development and research cycles have gone through the presidencies of Obama, Trump, and Biden all simultaneously. So it's a little bit hard to make it political when you actually think about that. But beyond that, it is an interesting aircraft, and I think it will probably have some pretty unmatched abilities when we actually see it put into service. I have a feeling, man, that the Chinese Dorito chip is probably going to be sweating now that they know that this thing is going to be put into service here within the next couple of years as well. But
is the Dorito chip, is it supposed to be a air superiority fighter like the F-47? Because I thought that one was a bomber or something.
Let me go pull up the Chinese Dorito chip. Let me go get it. I actually typed in Chinese Dorito plane and it actually pulled it up. So apparently that's starting to stick these days. But I think it's supposed to be, maybe it's an air superiority fighter. I can't really tell because we never got to see the internal bays of it. And we actually don't know the dimensions of this thing either to know how big it is. So it might be big enough to be some sort of a bomber. Because, I mean, look at that shape. I mean, that is an incredibly odd shape. It almost looks like a bomber to me.
It looks like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
It kind of does. Man, this thing honestly looks hideous from a side angle, man. It's like, my God.
Man, it looks bad. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. But yeah, the underside of it doesn't look too bad. But the side view, shoot, don't want that side profile.
I'm not going to lie, man. The wing geometry on this thing is incredibly simple. Like, it honestly, it's wildly simple. Like, it honestly is showing a lack of machining abilities. Because when you look at it, man, it's like, it's all sharp angles.
Yeah, they told the engineers, we want this new fighter jet to be cutting edge, so they added sharp edges
to make it cut. Like, it's like, yeah. Bro, that thing be cut.
This plane cuts right through the air, buddy.
So let's see. This isn't it. That isn't the plane that we were seeing up there, because notice how this one has smoothed edges, like right down here at the wingtips. This one sure as hell does not. So I would have to. You know, I'm very interested in this one. We don't know a lot about it, much like we don't know a lot really about the J-47. But it is interesting. And you know what, Matthew? Based off of the size of that landing gear, because it kind of looks like conventional fighter landing gear. I think this thing is supposed to be some form of an air superiority fighter as well. So it looks like China might be trying to develop their own 6th generation air superiority fighter, but I have a feeling that this thing is going to be a lot less capable. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, there's a picture with the internal bay open. Let's see if we can get a close-up of that. Okay, so that's like a Photoshop. Like they're actually putting like weapons in there. Those look like air-to-ground ordnance, but that might be an internal bay for air-to-air weaponry. We don't know because we haven't actually seen this thing using anything yet.
Yeah, this crapper right here, when they showed the video that leaked out of it flying around China's skies, they really didn't put it through its paces very much. Like, it didn't really pull off any like high G maneuvers or anything. So it's really hard to tell exactly what its capabilities are. And originally, I thought it was a bomber, personally, a tactical bomber of some sort. But it might actually be maybe a fighter. The fact that nobody knows even what the thing is or what it does is not really an advantage, I would say. It's more like, I'm not sure if the Chinese really have it figured out either right now.
I don't really know if anyone has it figured out. Like you're saying, I don't think they have it figured out. And if they do, I think they may or may not have AI assistants flying with this one. I highly doubt it. But moving on from that and on from that whole aside on the aircraft, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news that we have not gotten out of Russia, but we've actually gotten out of the Middle East, because we've actually gotten a decent amount of developments going on down here before we move on into the meat of the news, which is the Belgorod offensive and also all of the other frontline news in Ukraine. But before we get on into that, I do have to say that we've had quite a large amount of people here tonight. We have had 9.5 thousand people here at the peak. And not only that, there are still 9,000 of y'all here right now. And if y'all are enjoying this channel, please make sure to subscribe. I mean, we are well over 340,000 subscribers at this point. And any extra subscribers helps the Leaf Spring Army, which is the community of this channel, grow just a little bit extra. So if you want to, hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell button as well, why not? Like, let's do the typical YouTuber thing. But anyways, Matthew, I understand that we have a couple of questions. A couple of them, a handful of them possibly. And I want to answer at least 3 of them. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our first super chat question of the night goes to none other than Howard Mendelson, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Howard, for throwing in that support and helping to keep the channel running, and we appreciate it very much. He said, in this case, the F in F-47 stands for fictional.
Well, I thank you for the support. But the F-47 is not going to be a fictional thing. It's real. It's real. This thing is going to be real in the end. It's honestly a little bit. It's really impressive, but it's also a little bit concerning to hear that it's going to have AI-assisted wingmen. Honestly, though, I do have to say this. As far as the Air Force would be concerned, that's actually a win-win for them, because if they're not having to train a pilot for every single air superiority fighter that is in the air, that makes things a lot easier. Because, think about it. If you have 5 of these in the air, 4 of them are AI operated, and 1 of them's an actual pilot, and 1 of the AI aircraft gets killed, one thing you don't have to do anymore is that you don't have to train a pilot or try and recover a pilot anymore for that plane that just got shot down because it didn't have a pilot. So that cuts down a lot on training time and being able to grow an Air Force, because at that point, if you're able to get just 1 pilot trained and put into service as an actual fighter pilot, that means that you just added 5 new operational aircraft to the Air Force with the introduction of just 1 brand new pilot. That is 5 times the firepower with still the same amount of training required as we currently have right now. So it's impressive in some ways, scary in others, but excuse me, if anyone's scared that this thing is going to start dropping bombs on y'all's heads like it's going to be Skynet or anything, you don't have to worry about that, because these are air superiority fighters, and unless if you own a fighter aircraft of your own, it's highly unlikely that these things are going to be coming and shooting you down. So
what if the thing's fighting like the enemy or something, and then it decides, like the AI decides it likes the other side better? Is it going to turn on us?
Oh, no, the AI isn't going to be that advanced, man. Like, they're not going to give it a conscience. Like, why in the world would you give a killing machine a conscience, It's going to be...
Well, hell, they're doing that. They're developing it right now. Remember, the military was trying to develop some type of autonomous system that could literally choose what munition to fire, and also basically make the kill shots, basically, which is crazy.
Nah, man, the AI and these things, they're going to be saying, they drug me to keep me a vegetable. They're not going to be, like, there's going to be AI, but it's not going to be super intelligent AI. It's going to be AI that uses intelligence to problem solve the orders that it's being issued. It's not going to be that kind of intelligence to where it's like ChatGPT, where it just, spews out things, or honestly, it doesn't even think about anything. It just spews out answers to things. So I would have to say,
I hope so.
Well, I'd hope so as well, because it'd be scary, man, if they just started firing AIM 120s at our house. Honestly, that'd be even scarier, knowing that they'd have to get a radar lock, and I don't know how you get a radar lock on a house. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well. I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, but I think that the F-47 has a promising future. The one complaint I do have, though, just to let y'all know, is the numbering of it, because it's a political thing. Like I gotta say, y'all, like, I'm just so tired of everything getting politicized. Like, I guess that's why some people want to say that it sucks, is because it's named 47, which is after the 47th President of the United States. Usually, just to let y'all know, if anything's named after a president at all, it's usually posthumously after they're dead, not when they're living. So to do it while someone's living is honestly in poor taste. And also another thing is that this aircraft has been in development for 4 presidencies: Obama, Trump, Biden, and now Trump again. So it's like, why in the world is it being called F-47? Why not carry on with our normal naming convention? Because in reality, this thing ought to be called the F-24 or the F-25, because that would actually work in the numbering convention that we've had so far, because it doesn't really fit in any other way. Also, by the way,
why couldn't they have called it like the FA-XX or something like that? Some cool name.
I don't know. Like, and also, man, like, what is this thing going to get named? The Cyborg? Like, what kind of cool name are they going to give it? Because they haven't given it one yet. Like, they already gave the B-21 its name. Like, they already cooked one up. It's called the B-21 Raider, and it's like, that's really cool sounding. Like, a Raider is a really neat kind of a thing to call it. So I was like, that's neat. So the F-47, it just doesn't have any naming convention yet. It's just the F-47.
The F-47 Skynet.
You know, that's not a bad one. Like, that's not
bad at all, actually.
Reference to the Terminator, not bad. I think that's a good one. But let's see. Someone said Sky Ghost. That's an interesting one. Let's I wonder, like, I wonder if we could come up with some good names. Y'all start cooking in the chat, because I'm wondering if we could come up with a good name for this thing. Honestly, we should come up with something. Mirage is already taken. I was about to say Mirage, but Mirage is already taken by the French, so we can't use Mirage again. So something that gets the idea that you're seeing more than what's actually there, without seeing double-sided, like something that actually is short and sounds good. What
about the F-47 Terrorizer?
That sounds good. How about we how about we call this the Grim Reaper?
You could call it that. I think isn't there already a plane called the Reaper? That's a drone.
Yeah. The Reaper already does exist. Dang, that's taken. Let's see. See some people putting in some things.
Damn, the chat's going crazy over that.
The chat is going crazy. Someone said Banshee. That's a pretty neat one. Well, I think we've used Banshee before, but we could use it again, maybe like Banshee 2. Let's see.
Bro,
Dang.
some of these names are freaking wild that are coming in right now. These names are not kosher, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh, the Illusion. That would be a cool one. The F-47 Illusion. Because, you know, it's one pilot, but there's 5 of them.
What about the F-47 Democracy Manifest?
How about Succulent Chinese Meal? Like, what are the charges? Shooting down a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? How?
Honestly, if I was in charge of naming this thing, I would simply go to like the fireworks store or something and go look at those boxes of fireworks. But you know, they add those crazy names to all of them, like the crazy like Terminator, like explosives and stuff like that. I'll just go there and pick one of those like adjectives and throw it on this fighter.
You know, I actually see some people saying that it should be called the Enforcer. Like the F-47 Enforcer. Like, Enforcer wouldn't be a bad one for the name of an aircraft, but I think it should be a name that kind of like alludes to what it is. Like the Flying Fortress, it was laden with machine guns. It looked like a flying fortress, so they called it that. Like this one, like there's multiple aircraft that will be flying alongside the actual piloted one, so it kind of seems like an illusion of a sort. Like there's one piloted aircraft, but there's actually 5 of them. And they're all stealth and you can't see them. So Illusion seems like it would be a really good name, like a moniker for this aircraft. Like I think F-47 Illusion would be my pick. Because also, by the way, folks, I don't want to be like other folks where I'm living right now and I'm like, let's call it the Enforcer. Like, it's like, nah, that's in bad taste. Like if it was called that outside of my decision, then that would be fine. But if it's ever in my decision, I would never call it anything that's related to me at all, because that seems a little narcissistic. But anyways, with that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling, and I hope that does address that well. And also, Jay Bagel said, the Phantom 3. That's actually not a bad idea either. Man, we're going to start getting into naming everything Phantom like a Shrek movie. Like, there's like 5 Shrek movies. Like, we're going to just start calling everything Phantom. We're going to have like Phantom 9 by the end of this century. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Also, I got a good one, Matthew. The F-47 Communist Oppressor.
That could be a good one. What about the F-47 Obsidian Raptor?
I don't know what in the world that makes sense of, but that is pretty cool sounding. Like,
Dark, sleek, and predatory.
Isn't that just Diddy though?
Bro, whoa.
Call that thing the F-47
okay.
Diddy. Like,
Okay. What about the F-47 Phantom Vortex? We want to go with Phantom.
Man, why in the world is it having 2 names? Like, this is sounding like...
That's what Grog chose to put 2 names on everything instead of just one. I don't know why. I asked it for a cool name, and it gave 2 names for everything.
Dude, that's what Hot Dog Man buys at the dispensary. Oh, man, can I have a chocolate vortex? Or something like that. Extra sticky. Like, honestly. Man, I'll be entirely honest with you there, man. I would just... I would say the illusion is a pretty good one. Like, I think that's a neat one, maybe. But they'll come up with one. Usually the military comes up with them these days, which is kind of a shame because back in the day, people used to come up with them for themselves. Like, we came up with a flying fortress, the military didn't. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the next question. But big thanks to you once again for support, and you got the chat flying here. So I got to thank you massively for the support and throwing in something about the F-47 because it's certainly been a topic of the day's discussions. But still, thank you once again, Howard Mendelson, for the support and helping this thing to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Attila the Fun One, who puts in a 20. And that is their first ever super chat, by the way. And thank you very much, Attila, for that $20 support. And they said, it must be pointy. It won't scare the enemy unless it's pointy.
Yeah, it won't scare. Like, that's from the movie The Dictator. You know, like when they made the nuclear missile, and he was like, "Why is it round? It needs to be pointy." Like, they're not going to be scared if it's not pointy. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it has to be pointy. Attila the Fun One, and I like that. I like that name, by the way. And thank you for your first super chat ever, because we have to make them scared, and the Chinese have to scare us by making it pointy. They can't make it rounded. That wouldn't be as intimidating. It has to be pointed. It has to quite literally look like a Dorito. So thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that well. And also, Matthew, I believe we have one last question before we get on into the rest of the news.
Yes, we do. And the last question of the segment. Also, by the way, I have one from Gunfox. I'm not sure if he wants me to save those or not, so I'm going to go ahead and save them because he wants us to rabbit hole on them. They're 2 days in history. So I will save that one for the last segment. But this one, the last one of the first segment, is going to go to Voodoo for You, or Voodoo You 1, who puts in a 50. And thank you very much for that $50 support, by the way. Massive support, and we appreciate that very much. And they said, why did you guys decide to leave law school? Just wondering. And I'll make it short and sweet for me. For me, I decided I really don't care for the profession. I don't like the environment. I really don't care for the whole career field, to be perfectly honest. I had to go to law school to figure that out, but that's okay, though. I learned a lesson, and I regrouped, and now here we are. So I'm much happier doing this. This is honestly much, much, much rather what I would be doing than law school, to be perfectly honest, because law school sucked, and I just don't like the whole thing. It seems kind of toxic. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say it's almost the same thing as Matthew. I got to thank you for the support, Voodoo You 1, and also throwing in your third super chat ever, and it's quite a hefty one at that, and I thank you massively for that. But to answer your question, law school sucked. Didn't really like most of the people in it. Didn't really like most of the. I didn't really like the atmosphere of the legal profession. It was a very bad one. Like, I'm not one to say, like, I'm not one to get into, like, it was an unfriendly atmosphere and not welcoming, like, I'm not like that, but it was, like, honestly, the best way I could say it, it was kind of like a scummy atmosphere. Like, no disrespect to any attorneys who are watching the show, but the law school that we went to was just a very scummy kind of an atmosphere, and it was a terrible place. I went in there, I already knew I didn't really like the law. I was going to law school for slightly different reasons than Matthew was, but I already knew that I wouldn't really like it going in, went in, confirmed that, and then I got out at the same time Matthew did. Like, I would be entirely honest to all of y'all. make sure if you're working a job to follow your dreams instead of following what other people want you to do or following what you think will make you money. You'll never be happy doing that. You'll only live in misery because it's better to chase what you actually enjoy doing or what you're actually good at, which we're good at covering the news like this right here, instead of trying to chase some sort of like mythical thing that gets you in a higher social standing. Because I would have to say this. Like here's something that I have to say, because I was told by someone, I'm not going to get into this too much, that being a YouTuber is practically being a bum, and to become somebody you have to become a doctor or a lawyer. More people know me and have more respect for me doing this job than anyone would have ever had any respect for me being an attorney. So I'm much happier doing this than I would be any other kind of a job. Just being completely frank with folks, and that's really why we ended up quitting law school, because we were doing this, and I love doing this. We've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm going to keep doing it for as long as we can. And so I sat there in law school, and I was thinking, why in the world am I going to do something that I absolutely hate doing, when I could just continue to really do what we do great at and just continue to cover news and do foreign policy analysis, which we do a wonderful job at. And I was like, I would much rather do this for the rest of my life, or however much longer this would last, than try and become an attorney. And if this ever fell through, we'll find something else to do. But it sure as hell won't be being an attorney. That I'm sure of.
And also someone said, it's not like you guys aren't smart or something. So why'd you get out of it? Honestly, I had really good grades. Like I finished out the first semester and went into my second one. During the midpoint of the second semester is when I was like, yeah, I don't really think I like this. Like I'm really miserable doing it. But I actually had really good grades. Like coming out the first semester, I was actually doing pretty good. But I was like, I'm doing good at it. And it's like, I don't enjoy it even an ounce. I'm like, I don't enjoy anything about this. So it's like, would I rather go and do something different, or would I keep on going through this, have a whole bunch, a hell of a lot of debt coming out of there, like, over $100 grand in debt, and then have to figure out how to go get a job from there in a field that I don't even really care for. So I was like, I'm going to have to take my chances elsewhere. And luckily, we were doing the channel at that point as well. So we loved doing that. So it was like real natural just to go right full time into this, which was a blessing. And thankfully, it did work out. And everybody's very happy with the channel. So we can still run it, which is a very good thing.
And it is a great thing. But I hope that answers your question somewhat. But once again, like my advice to folks, never try and chase money, or never try and chase what people want you to do. No matter who they are, do what you want to do. Like people will say these kinds of things to you, like especially to the audience that we have. I think like 3% of our audience is about our age. Like, so they're at the point right now where they're probably in college, or they're getting out of college, or they're not even really in college yet, and they're wanting to know what they want to do. Do what makes you happy. If your parents are doctors, but for some reason you love working on cars, like you love getting under the hood of a car and working on it, go and become a car mechanic. Like, it does not matter if they tell you that it will not make enough money. It is better to make less money and be happier with what you're doing than to make more money and be miserable. Money isn't everything. It's more so about actually being fulfilled with what you're doing and feeling like what you do actually has a purpose, or that you at least enjoy it. That's really the way you ought to decide how to pick your job and what to do in life, beyond what people usually do, which is a superficial chasing money and chasing status. Because if you're a great car mechanic, I can promise you people will be looking for you, and you can probably open up your own auto repair business and probably end up being the boss of several auto repair shops around your area, and end up doing better than any doctor would have ever done. If you really love what you do, you can make anything work. And this YouTube channel is a great example of that. It started out with me trying to find something to do because of the Wuhan whirlybird going around, and I couldn't get a job, and it turned from that into being one of the largest and most prominent world news channels here on YouTube currently, which is just wildly crazy to think about where that went. And that was something that I was always passionate about my entire life, loved doing it, loved talking about it, and then I finally turned it into a job. I joke with that sometimes behind the scenes. I always tell people, oh man, everyone always used to complain, man, when the hell will Andrew shut the hell up about talking about shit that doesn't count? And I was like, now I make a living out of it. It's like that's the best thing about it, is that I finally made a living out of it. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. But a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, Voodoo U. And I hope that addresses that incredibly well and gives a little bit of my logic behind it, and maybe a little bit of word of advice to the really, really small part of the audience that's our age as well. And hopefully it helps some of them out a little bit. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news because we have a significant amount of it. And moving on down into the Middle East, it appears that the protests against Erdogan's government are continuing, as we were able to see absolutely massive protests inside of Istanbul still in the hundreds of thousands once again today. And it appears that no efforts by law enforcement are able to mitigate the size of these crowds. And if anything, they're only embroiling them further to violence. Meanwhile, we've also been able to see that these kinds of actions are now expanding into Ankara itself, the capital of Turkey, as we've been able to see that there are absolute clashes breaking out in the capital's streets at this moment. We're able to see them trashing a police truck as the truck begins to withdraw.
Is that like one of those Israeli trucks that has like the water cannon on it and they spray the skunk spray?
I think so. You can see it spraying something up there.
Man, that skunk spray is like horrific that Israel sprays all those cannons. Like, you don't want to get hit with that.
Man, I mean, I wouldn't want to get hit with that either, but it looks like the police are still having to back up, though, because it looks like they have incensed the crowd, and they're getting violent at this point. We've also been able to hear, interestingly enough, in Turkish news, that there is a deal possibly being struck in between the United States and Turkey, as the President of the United States stated that he's open to the idea of selling F-35s to Turkey if the Russian-made S-400 system that they're currently using is made inoperable. So if the Turks give up their S-400, they can get F-35s. So for the Turks, it's a decision in between what's more important, ground-based air defense or air-based multi-role abilities. They'll probably end up picking the F-35 instead. But moving on from that and down into the Middle East proper, we have been able to hear that Israeli airstrikes have been hitting the area of Palmyra heavily overnight, as it appears that they are trying to knock out Iranian militias that have been basing near to the Palmyra airfield. We can see the explosions in the distance being filmed by a Syrian citizen on the ground, and it appears that the Israelis dealt a pretty significant blow to the compound. We also were able to hear that within the southern area of Israel, once again near to the port of Eilat, several Houthi missiles were shot down by Arrow 3 exo-atmospheric anti-ballistic missile interceptors, as the Houthis are continuing to fire missiles towards the state of Israel. You see the camera person near to Eilat looking in the skies and trying to see if they can spot anything coming in or any Arrow 3s going out. That's the end of that clip right there. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also were able to hear significant news within the southern area of the Gaza Strip that the head of Hamas intelligence has been killed in an Israeli airstrike today in southern Gaza. Once again showing that the Israelis are using targeted intelligence provided by the Mossad to be able to knock out Hamas's leading people, to once again make it a lot easier to conduct a ground invasion and isolate and destroy Hamas forces in detail inside of the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile,
you said the head of Hamas intelligence?
Yes, and that's kind of shocking because it's not really like they have much of that anyways.
Yeah, I was about to say, I didn't even know they had one like that.
Well, you know, I guess that was their last brain cell that got knocked out right there. So like it's going to be a lot tougher for them going forward. But moving on into northern Houthi-controlled Yemen, we were able to hear that the U.S. airstrikes are continuing to target the Sudzha governorate in northern Yemen, and this is the 7th consecutive day of American airstrikes on Houthi targets across Yemen, meaning that this is an entire week of airstrikes. Pretty impressive. Moving on from that, we were also able to hear that the Harry Truman and the USS Carl Vinson will be operating in the Middle East. The USS Carl Vinson is currently underway to the Middle East and will be joining the USS Harry Truman in its operations within the region. The Secretary of Defense ordered these movements to bolster U.S. force posture in the region, and as part of this decision, the deployment of the USS Harry S. Truman will be extended. So it appears that U.S. air power and naval power within the region will be greatly expanded with the bringing in of the USS Carl Vinson and the addition of a great deal of additional firepower. Moving on from that and into the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were able to hear that there was a small earthquake of 4.8 on the Richter scale. And it appears...
Oh, where might that have happened, I wonder? Is it near a nuclear facility of any sort?
It is near a nuclear facility. Some have said that it may be something that had to do with the nuclear development. I'd have to say, considering that it was on the Richter scale, that it was probably the Khamenei's rectum tightening up as he heard that the Carl Vinson was on the way. That's what I had assumed. But, and it was shaking the ground quite significantly, but not as much as when Chris's mom fell down in the area. But beyond that, we're just laying out like slugs tonight, man. But beyond that, a 4.8 magnitude earthquake was recorded near the Natanz nuclear facility, where Iran enriches uranium with centrifuges. However, the enrichment process with centrifuges could never go in such a bad way that it would create any kind of significant explosion that would be measured on the Richter scale or any seismographic activity at all. So we were assuming that this may be something else entirely different. It may actually be just natural seismic activity, but we're not believing that it's a nuclear test. If a nuclear test is to be conducted, we are believing that it's most likely going to be conducted somewhere within western central Iran, which is largely completely uninhabited and would be conducive to some form of a nuclear test. So it most likely would not be happening at Natanz, which is quite literally just a little ways out of Isfahan, which is one of the largest cities inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So we'll be waiting to see what that is, but I have a feeling it was probably something close to nothing, although it is an interesting seismic activity nonetheless. Moving on from that, though, and on into our Europe news, that's actually going to be taking us shockingly to North Korea, because we were able to hear that Shoigu is going to North Korea, and now he's asking, which means, where's the ammo? But, oh, by the way, silly me, I totally forgot about this. Matthew just sent me a text message, and he said, they drugged me to keep me a vegetable. I'm just kidding, by the way. He said, we have a poll, and it appears that U.S. officials are open to sell F-35s to Turkey if they deactivate their S-400 systems that they bought from Russia. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts. And some people are saying, a decent amount of people are saying, that Turkey will likely agree. Some are saying that's a 50-50 chance. Others are saying that Turkey will deny to harm Russia. And others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so it looks like about 46% of the audience said Turkey will likely agree to it, while 17% said Turkey will deny to harm Russia, and 26% said, it seems like a 50-50 chance. And once again, to reiterate it, the reports is that the U.S. president is open to the idea of selling F-35 jets to Turkey if the Russia-made S-400 system is made inoperable. So that is an interesting piece of the puzzle right there, and honestly, I would have to say that I think Turkey might agree to it because I think they really want the F-35s, and I believe we were selling them to them beforehand, and then we sanctioned Turkey or something like that, and we stopped selling the F-35s. So I think they probably will want those back because, of course, we're giving them the toned-down version of the F-35, but nonetheless, it's still a very capable aircraft, and I'm sure that the fellow there would love to have some more. So I'm with the 46%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I'm with the 46% as well. The F-35 is far better than any S-400 because rock beats scissors. And in this case, the S-400 is the scissors and the F-35 is the rock. Not Dwayne the Rock Johnson, it's just a rock. But beyond that, I would have to say that Turkey will most likely agree to it because the F-35 can conduct sea operations. It can also conduct air-to-ground operations and air-to-air operations all in one package, meaning that it is far better to have than an S-400. The S-400 can only conduct air defense, and that's far limited in scope and abilities for a single weapons platform compared to, say, an F-35. So I think they're probably going to accept that deal. But moving on from that and back on into that North Korean news, here is Shoigu arriving in North Korea today. Notice the absolute absence of anything beyond the aircraft. No aircraft, no external facilities, just North Koreans living in the moment. Also, I don't know how to explain this part, but somehow North Korea has industrial smog.
Yeah, how did they really have that when they don't produce anything?
Man, Kim Jong-un's probably just telling them, burn all the coal, damn it, we gotta look like we're industrial.
Better to have smog than no smog. Smog is progress. Remember that, comrades.
Dude, I cannot believe that they actually have that bad of smog. And then everyone went, I like how the North Koreans, like the aides and the media and stuff, they run around like they're about to get shot, like they actually are going to be. But look at this. They are running, like they are going. But anyways, that's the end of the clip right there. And moving on from that and on out of that little bit of news in North Korea, it appears that Shoigu's there to probably try and get more ammo, more weaponry from him. But moving on out of that little bit of news in North Korea, it's now time for us to move on into Europe and on into the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Some of y'all wonder, why do I say that? Well, some of y'all might notice that I actually have a trend of saying the real names of countries out there, like their actual legal names, kind of like I have a legal name, countries have legal names. America isn't America, it's the United States of America. Canada isn't Canada, it is the Dominion of Canada. I'm just kidding, by the way, it's not the Dominion of Canada. But the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is the official name of the UK. And also Germany's called the Federal Republic of Germany, and so on. There are only two countries out there, well actually there's three, that don't follow that convention: Ukraine, Israel, and Japan. They don't have any actual official name beyond their name. So with Ukraine, you just say the state of Ukraine. With Israel, you say the state of Israel. And with Japan, you say the state of Japan. That's their actual legal name. So, if you say Japan, Israel, and Ukraine, that's actually their official name. Any other country, they usually have a more technical, precise name in full that you won't usually see on a world map or anything like that. So, anyways, moving on from that and that quick little explanation, just catching people up to why I say the long names. In the UK, near the area of Heathrow, we have heard that there has been a very sad tragedy today. 1,315 flights have had to be canceled and diverted away from London Heathrow because the simple fact of the matter is that London Heathrow is currently without power. So they are really not able to bring in anyone from anywhere at this point, and they are having to wait for a major substation near to the area of Hayes to be repaired and fixed so that way they can be able to receive flights again. The British are currently inspecting this situation at the substation as some form of a suspected sabotage by possibly the Russian Federation, as it appears that there is some sort of an act of terrorism that may have been involved, as the circumstances in which the substation combusted are somewhat suspicious. Really, that's the way it's been put so far to the public. So we are possibly seeing that may be an act of terrorism or an act of sabotage by the Russian Federation on British soil. So that's a little bit interesting to hear. Also, something else that's a little bit interesting to know about Heathrow Airport is that Heathrow Airport, we were actually talking about this last night, and I really didn't expound on this a lot, so it kind of left a lot of people with a mystery. Heathrow is one of the only major international airports in the world that pretty much vectors all of their traffic onto only two runways. It's one of the few major international airports that actually does that, and I think that it's one that has been a little bit overdone as time has gone by, because if y'all have ever seen Heathrow in the past, like say Heathrow in 1946, let me go show you all this. Heathrow was a much different airport at that time. This is actually a picture of Heathrow in 1946, and it actually had 6 runways.
Whoa, I'm not gonna lie, when I just looked at that the first time, I thought that was a symbol of something. When I looked at it, I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it looks like a Star of David. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But what's even cooler than this is that you can actually see some of these runways and the remnants left over at the airfield. For example, you can see one runway here, which is now a ramp onto the runway. It actually still extends through the airport as it originally did. You can see it right down there. See, like, the remnants of it and how it went through the airport. You can actually see the original 6 runways still at Heathrow. It's just that they've all been covered over by modern tarmac or have been repaved over time, and also the airport's been completely changed in its layout and configuration. So most of them appear to be just small ramps at this point, but you can still see the remains of the original runways at Heathrow Airport that existed way back at its original inception in the 40s.
Yeah, why'd they get rid of the symbol?
They got rid of it because these runways were too short to support the modern landing distances of modern aircraft. So they just extended the two runways that ran east to west, because that was the only area of usable ground that they had to be able to expand in any direction. Because if they expanded the runways north, they were going to start running into pretty much, they were going to start running into Hayes. I was about to say Slough, that would have been wrong. If they expanded south, they would have gone into Ashford. But east and west, Hounslow was a pretty good ways away, and there was nothing heading west towards Windsor. So they were able to expand those 2 runways, but the others were not able to be expanded.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's very fascinating.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing about this airport. It's very interesting, the developmental history of British airports. But beyond that, it's an interesting airbase, nevertheless, and with that, we are going to be moving on. We're going to be moving on from Britain and on into Germany, because we've been able to hear of some more shocking news from the Federal Republic of Germany today, as Spiegel has stated that that's kind of like Schmiegel. But beyond that, Germany, that's a newspaper, by the way, in Germany. I know what that is. Someone's about to be like, "Oh, you idiot!" I know what it is. I'm just making a joke. Calm down. It's a joke. Germany has officially confiscated the Russian Shadow Fleet tanker Eventon, loaded with 100,000 tons of oil valued at 40 million euros. This can be considered a major escalation. There's the Everton right there. It's kind of a bigger ship. And some people would say, wow, that's some big shit. The Germans confiscated a whole Shadow Fleet tanker, and they did. So we'll be seeing how the Russians react to that, because they didn't react well to it being seized in the first place, and we have no idea how they're going to be reacting to it actually officially being seized as of today. But we'll be seeing, and I'm sure we'll get a very, very calm and reasoned reaction from the Russian Federation over this development today. But still, it seems as though many people have been talking about that little visit that Sergei Shoigu made to Pyongyang today. And I guess you could say that he was Pyong in that yang today when he showed up. But beyond that, Russian military official Sergei Shoigu flew to North Korea today for secret talks with Kim Jong-un, which were then televised around the world, which kind of made them not so secret, but they're still secret. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts. And some people have said, a lot of people have actually said, that Russia needs more weapons, and they're trying to get the North Koreans to give them some. Others are saying that Russia just wants some spicy kimchi, and there isn't really a lot of that to go around in North Korea, so maybe they could settle with a potato, which is fairly common in Russia. Others are saying that it's actually a meeting with China, just being held on North Korean ground, and others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about Sergei's little visit to North Korea today, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So a whopping 78% said Russia needs more weapons, and they're back to begging from Kim Jong-un. 10% said Russia just wants some of that spicy kimchi, which is basically fermented cabbage, if I have that correct. And 9% said it's actually a meeting with China. And this is my very strong belief about this. I believe this very strongly, and I don't have the evidence to back it up, but I think just based on logic and also the dynamics of the situation, geopolitically, I think this makes a lot of sense. Whenever Russia shows up to North Korea, which is a very poor country that does not have a lot of facilities, nor does have a lot of supplies of any sort, they're actually showing up and basically speaking to Kim Jong-un as a liaison back to China. That's my assumption. I believe that North Korea is being used as a conduit to take military equipment from Asia and put it into Russia to give them weapons to fight against Ukraine. So I think that's what's going on here. I'm actually with the 9%. I think it's actually a meeting with China, and Kim is simply the face of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my opinion, I'd be with the 78%. I think the Russian Federation is going to North Korea to get more weapons, because while North Korea doesn't have a large industrial ability, they've never fought a conventional war since the end of the Korean War in 1953, meaning that they have been stockpiling munitions the entire history of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, meaning that there is a lot of ammunition for the Russians to pull from there, and it's not exactly like the Kims have ever been one to start focusing on domestic productions. They've always been focusing on wartime production and keeping North Korea in a wartime economy. So they probably are going directly to North Korea to get more weapons from them, because in the past we have seen that duds and other kinds of debris caused by missiles or any other sorts of weaponry that have been provided by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea are not Chinese in nature. They are purely North Korean in their design and also their use, and also the markings found on any of the debris. It is always in Korean and it's not in Mandarin. So that would also be a clear sign that these weapons being provided are entirely North Korean in nature and not Chinese. So I would largely be with the 78%. They're probably going to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, very long name, to get more weapons from them. Although they are probably sourcing weapons from the Chinese from some other channel, I don't think it's through North Korea per se. But still, moving on from that, and on into the rest of the news that we have tonight. And we still have quite a large amount of it, mind you, so make sure to stick around, folks. Oh, and my YouTube control room just died. I always like it when I look over that screen and it turns solid white right in my face. I love that, because it always freaks me out. I always think the computer just bricked. But moving on from that and into the Russian Federation, we were able to see down in Krasnodar that a massive facility went up in flames. This is the Kievskaya oil transshipment hub. That thing was
Взорвалась
cooking.
вся база. Все горит.
Shoigu!
There won't
That's
be any.
awful.
There won't be any Shoigu now.
Очень хорошо.
Look at what you've done, Shoigu. You've led your country to this. It's hell. It's blazing over. Oh my God.
Oh! Oh!
You did not see graphite. You see nothing. Go to the infirmary.
Also, what kind of a horn was that?
Sounded like a Tatra horn.
That is the stupidest sounding horn for a large truck I've ever heard. Well,
it sounds very like a truck from India, like type of horn.
Man, I'll be honest with you. That horn sounded like a video game sound effect that wasn't even supposed to be a horn. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we did get to see that a depot within the area of Kafskaya is still burning, and the sky is solid black. But it is not what you think.
It looks like the weather we just had a short while ago.
Honestly, it does. Oh, they're about to be hit by an F3. An EF3. Actually, we are recategorizing the tornadoes. The strongest ones are going to be EF47s, but we can see the Kafskaya oil depots continuing to burn, and that thing is cooking.
And somewhat of a cute dog back there. I just saw that right there in the middle of the video.
Oh, that is a cute
Look at
puppy.
That. I like that dog. I don't even know what type of dog it is, but it looks like a cartoon.
Yeah, honestly, man. Everyone loves the smell of burning oil. Well, that's the end of that clip right there. And moving on from that and into our next one, we also got to see the oil depot hit from another angle. Actually, a couple of angles. First, we can see this guy filming it. We also hear them playing ice cream truck music as they're driving around. I don't know why.
You look very hot, comrade. Would you care for a popsicle?
Man, in Russia, they don't call them popsicles. They call them just sickles. Would you like a sickle, please? That's the end of that clip right there. And moving on from that and into the next one. We see it burning out there. This was earlier on in the night. Oh, that thing's hot.
It does look like the apartment scene from the Chernobyl miniseries when it went up.
It always looks like that, man. Like, every single time there's a fire in Russia, it always has, like, that abnormal look to it.
It's really nostalgic, actually.
Man, I love the good old days of toxic radiation poisoning. I, like, really miss those days. Oh. Oh. And then, last but not least. Man, they're busting down in this car. They're busting down. Man, they're about to listen to like that Mongolian throat singing stuff. You know, something like. I gotta be honest with you, the track is not matching the scene.
Man, they're out here watching their country burn into the ground. They're listening to something talking about, yeah, throw it back. Yeah, throw it back.
Man, they're driving by looking at critical infrastructure being destroyed. Meanwhile, in the stereo, certified freak, 7 days a week. Like, it's like, what the hell? It's like that does not match what's going on outside the car. But moving on from that and on into our next clip of news, we got to see that the Russians blew up their own pipeline near Sudzha today. Take a look at this. Actually, I'm sorry. I forgot. I actually didn't include that one. Whoopsies. I actually included this instead. So let me explain what y'all are about to see here. So this is a doctor that's a part of the Akhmat. That should already let y'all know this guy is a quack. But nevertheless, he is apparently having to deal with all of the Russian soldiers who went through that oil pipeline that went into Sudzha a while ago. And apparently while they were in there, none of them had any respirators on. So they were breathing in the fumes raw dogging style. And so apparently their lungs are coated with some sort of an oily film now. And they're not able to inhale enough oxygen for their bloodstream anymore. So doesn't sound fun for them, but here it is. So here are the guys who went through the pipeline. That is their lung. Pneumonia.
Yo, he says pneumonia. Like, I don't think that's pneumonia, bro.
Bro, the picture is like this. 90% lung obstruction. It's practically the same condition. Yeah, inhaling oil vapors is the same condition as Wuhan whirlybird. I'll believe that. It's radiologically confirmed. I'll be honest.
You know, one thing this guy definitely isn't. He's not definitely not a dentist.
I would be honest with you, man. I wouldn't trust medical advice from a doctor that's missing teeth, because it's like, if you can't even take care of your teeth, like, what kind of a doctor are you really? Like, I'd be kind of scared about that. Also, he's got a mild Boris Johnson haircut going on. Like, it's almost like Boris Johnson, but not really, because it's just a little bit shorter. Like, this guy does not have the look of a doctor I trust. Like, also, by the way, just to clear this up for some people, Boris Johnson doesn't do that to do that. Like, he's got some sort of a condition on his scalp where he actually can't comb it because it causes severe pain, so he can't really do much with it. But this guy doesn't have the condition. I'm fairly certain of that, and he's not combing his hair. So I'd be a little bit concerned about that. I'll show you a clear example right now. Oh, this is...
Oh, wow, look, it's the WebMD version of the anatomy.
Where did the sternum go? Like, where is the sternum in this model?
That got stolen.
Yeah, man, can't have shit in Vladivostok. It's like...
Yo, his lungs are green.
She is very dense.
Ну, это всем тем скептикам, которые говорят, что по траве прошел, ранений нет, значит, ты здоров. Вот наглядный пример.
Bro, healthcare in Russia is so cooked that some dude whose lungs are like cooked and fried to hell and back is like, oh, he's good, he's fine, don't worry, we'll walk it off.
Конечно, мы с этим боремся. Это еще отсроченные последствия, еще неизвестно какие.
And then he says the consequences, who knows what they'll be. It's like, you're the doctor. You're supposed to know. It's like, that's your job. Anyways, we're moving on from this quack and on into our next clip down in Belgorod, because we were able to confirm that the Ukrainians are down there and they are working. We got to see the Ukrainians clearing mines right here as they continue to advance further south and open up their beachhead into Belgorod a little bit wider. See them firing another mine clearing charge here. And now it's landing nice and easy in the field and then detonating, clearing out another path. Well, that's the end of that clip, but very impressive to see. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news in Belgorod, we also got to hear that apparently the Ukrainian armed forces are using ATACMS on the territory of the Belgorod region, confirming that the Americans have restocked the Ukrainian cache of ATACMS missiles. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we got to see fiber optics wound around tires. That's how many fiber optic wires are out in them fields. And I got to tell you, there's more wires out in them fields than a CIA field office or a black site. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that apparently the Ukrainians are now going to be manufacturing 40 new Bodanas, but up to a Western standard. Instead of using the 152mm main guns that the Bodanas have been known for, they're now going to be modifying them to use 155mm main guns, meaning that they will now be up to NATO standards and be standardized to use NATO heavy caliber artillery munitions. We also got to see a couple of Ukrainian Su-24s going on a pleasure stroll today. And not only that, we got to hear the Russian casualty report. Hold on to your socks, everyone. This report is something. Holy moly!
My gosh, look at that. 2 Bobcat skid steers today. A whopping 2 of them. And of course, we know those are very valuable to the Russians, and they're very rare these days. So to get 2 in a day, that's a good catch. But Enforcer, tell us more.
I had to say, Miss DC, keeper of the records, has been throwing out some pretty interesting numbers today. Troop losses are finally over 900,000, and at the current rate, it'll exceed 1 million in under 3 months. 101 artillery systems is a new record daily loss, meaning that we have a new record today in the artillery. 185 drones is the 7th highest daily loss, and 165 vehicles is the 8th highest daily loss. And the losses were pretty good across the board. 1,330 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 28 APCs, 165 supply trucks, 17 main battle tanks, 101 artillery pieces, 185 drones, 2 MLRSs, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, the numbers were very impressive today, and I have to say that it's wonderful to know that the Ukrainian armed forces are continuing to inflict high casualties on the Russian Federation armed forces and continuing to hold them back or push them back in some areas. Moving on into the northern region of the Ukrainian front lines, we were able to see a MiG-29 hitting Russians with hammers. This is also what happens in the Russian back alleys of Kazan. But check it out. We can see the Russians there down in the streets below, and here comes the hammers. They call them the Alabama hammers. Oh! Oh!
Oh, man. Oh.
And it's an impressive strike. What an amazing thing. Oh my goodness. They're going to rename the Moscow Mule to the Moscow Hammer because they're getting hammered. Oh man, I believe in consensual hammering. But moving on from that and down into Solidar, we also get to see this Buke get destroyed by the Ukrainians. This thing's worth 10 million, by the way. I just blew up a Russian air defense system, and whoever defeats Vladimir Putin gets $500,000. Who can do it? And then you get like 100 million views. Yeah, easy win, easy victory.
Bro is the king of those cruel and brutal challenges.
Man, a literal real-life Squid Game. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
man, it's crazy. But moving on from that and down towards Touretsk, we also get to see a clip from United 24 of the 93rd Brigade's artillery. Sadly, we will have to skip it because it's 6 minutes long, and we are running a little overtime. And also, due to some reasons behind the scenes, we have to make the stream a little bit shorter tonight, so we'll be having to cut everything down a little bit. But moving on down into Pokrovsk, we did also get to see an MLRS getting destroyed down here. Take a gander at this. Being destroyed by the three-headed dog. What's better than one dog? It's having three of them.
Honestly, I don't know how I feel about the three-headed dog thing. That main dog right there is a doozy.
Man, I tell you, man, it is a doozy, quite honestly. I mean, you see the MLRS getting destroyed right there. We now see an FPV drone coming in to finish the job.
Oh, look at that.
Dang! That was
A vital explosion.
A violent or vital explosion?
A vital.
Ah, yes. I see you know your vital explosions. Well, good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp explosion? How dare you, sir? But moving on from that into our next clip, we also got to see that the Russians were crawling. They were quite literally crawling. Take a look at this. Crawl!
Oh, zoom in.
Zoom and enhance. Crawl!
Oh. Before you can walk, you must crawl. You've not earned the right to walk.
And they're crawling away after a failed attack. Very sad. Many such cases. Look at them go. At this rate, they might be walking soon.
How's that one guy leaving behind a trail behind him like he weighs like 800 pounds or something?
I don't know, man. Like, that guy's got to be having a lot of weight on him. Like, he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders with those kinds of imprints. But moving on out of the Pokrovsk area and on up into Kyiv, we actually have the air defense report for the day, and it was a very impressive one. The Russians launched 214 drones overnight. 114 of them were directly shot down, and 81 of them were intercepted using anti-drone electronic warfare countermeasures. So meaning, not a lot of Russian drones made it through, it was only a handful. But moving on from that, it's now time for us to get on into Kyiv and cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on 1122 war. This isn't the longest speech that we've had, but it's still a long-lasting speech. So without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я і вітаю вас, усіх учасників конференції, усіх, хто допомагає звільняти людей з полону. Цієї середи для всіх нас в Україні була дуже позитивна новина. Вдалося повернути додому з російського полону ще 197 наших людей. І сотні тисяч щасливих постів в соціальних мережах, всі повідомлення в наших медіа про повернення наших хлопців свідчать, як українці, як вони чекають, як вони поважають своїх людей, як ми раді бачити своїх. Ми пам'ятаємо про кожного, хто в полоні, про всіх наших військових, про всіх наших цивільних. Шукаємо інформацію, шукаємо підтвердження про всіх, хто може утримуватись росіянами. Але про кого зараз поки що немає точної інформації. Це завжди радість, коли вдається знайти людину, вдається людину повернути. Вже більше 3 років, майже увесь час цієї війни працює наш координаційний штаб, всі служби працюють, всі служби, які повертають полонених. Вже більше 4 тисяч людей повернули, 4306. І повернемо всіх. Кожні мої перемовини, всі зустрічі з нашими партнерами, які можуть допомогти, це обов'язкове питання про українців, про наших полонених. Зараз, коли ми говоримо з американською стороною та іншими нашими партнерами про те, як завершити війну, ми говоримо про звільнення полонених як один із перших ключових кроків. Ми вважаємо, що це безумовно має бути. Я дякую всім партнерам, які нас у цьому підтримують, і кожному в Україні, у світі, всім, хто зберігає питання про полонених в інформаційному порядку денному. І також я прошу усіх вас пам'ятати, що кожна людина, яку ми звільняємо, це фактично подвиг тих, хто на фронті, хто поповнює наш обмінний фонд. Я хочу подякувати всім нашим воїнам за таку сміливість. І, будь ласка, прошу не забувати, що повернення додому, турбота про людей, які були в полоні, не має завершуватися. Це обов'язок всіх рівнів влади і кожного, хто просто може допомогти. Я хочу подякувати сьогодні командній роботі Офісу, ГУР, СБУ, МВС, омбудсмена, всіх інших, хто залучений і завдяки кому українці повертаються. Ми завжди повертаємо наших людей, і це одне з найважливіших правил нашої держави. Саме так є і так буде. Дякую вам. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 1122 of the war. And some of y'all said, hey, there's no subtitles. And what I got to say to that is, I was just making sure y'all are paying attention. Actually, sorry, everyone. I didn't notice that the subtitles weren't on. Usually the subtitles are on by default on his videos, but for some reason today it wasn't. I got up and left to get a handful of goldfish. Not the actual fish, but the snack. And then Matthew told me that the subtitles weren't on, and I raced back to turn them on. But nevertheless, I hope y'all got the most important meat of the speech, because there is always an important piece to each speech that one must interpret. But nevertheless, it is time for us to move on into that second segment of the stream tonight where we get to talk to all of y'all. And boy, howdy, what a fun time it always is. We love to talk to all of y'all. We really do. We really do. And we've had an amazing viewership tonight. Nearly 50,000 people have watched the stream so far. And at the peak tonight, there was 9.5 thousand people here. And I got to thank all of y'all so much for watching so far. I hope that y'all stick around because we got a very fun segment to go. We won't be able to rabbit hole as much tonight, like on our own, kind of like freestyling, because we do have to get up a little bit earlier in the morning. Really, Matthew has to get up earlier in the morning. I'll be able to hopefully stave it off a little bit and hopefully finally sleep, because I've been having trouble sleeping for the past few days, to be entirely frank with all of y'all. But beyond that, we are going to be getting on into some of them questions. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our last question segment of the night, we have some very good questions to get to, but just to make it clear, we have run several polls tonight, and I'm glad that the polls have got their running out for the day, and it looks like it's now time for them to take a rest. So we do love the polls very much. We appreciate the polls and everything they do, and thank you all very much for answering the polls, because they've asked us a lot of good questions, and sadly, we are now fresh out. So with that, we are now jumping right back into our Super Chat segment, and the first one of the last segment is going to go to none other than Rick Galinchin, who's of course one of our Canadian viewers who puts in a very generous 50 Canadian donation. And thank you very much, Rick, for the massive support, by the way, one of the largest super chats of the night. And he said, hey guys, it actually is the Dominion of Canada, even though it's never used. And why do lawyers wear neckties? What in the world does this mean, Rick? This last part right here is sketching me out. I don't get the joke. It is scaring me. But
Whoa!
What does it mean?
What? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
It's scaring me.
You're scaring me, man. You're scaring me. Moving on that. I do thank you for the support, Rick. And I got to thank you for clarifying that, because I thought that it was no longer the Dominion of Canada. It is still technically the Dominion of Canada. I did not know that. That's actually shocking to me. It is the Dominion, which means that it is a minion of Britain. And actually, funnily enough, the royal, the king or queen of the United Kingdom is still the official head of state of Canada, in case y'all didn't know. An interesting fact about that whole deal. But beyond that, I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Rick. And I got to thank you for sharing that, because I did not know that it still was officially called the Dominion of Canada. I actually learned something tonight, and now I'm going to have to eat my foot, because I said I was kidding about that earlier, and it's not called that, but it definitely is. So, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also sharing that interesting tidbit of knowledge with us and sharing that with me, because I personally just learned something new right there. But still, a huge thank you to you once again. Hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thank you to you once again for the massive support and helping to keep this channel possible.
All right. And yes, indeed. And big thanks, Rick, for that support. Also, by the way, I'm seeing people still flooding in with the F-47 naming convention. A lot of people are saying F-47 felon.
That's already taken by the Su-57 felon. Come on, people.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's already a felon out there. I forgot about that. And I just realized what everybody's saying that for as well. I thought it was actually like an actual idea for it, but never mind. So, yeah, the Russians already have a felon.
Man, you know why the Sukhoi is a felon?
Because somebody did something.
Because it's Sukhoi. I'm not even gonna continue. Man, I ain't gonna continue.
Wait, what?
It's Sukhoi. Like you want me to actually say it on air? You want me to say it on air?
I don't know what you're about to say. I'm worried.
Man, the Sukhoi Su-57, it's a felon because it's Sukhoides nuts.
Huh.
All right,
was that criminal or something?
Well, I mean, I guess it was, because it's called a felon now, isn't it? I mean, it kind of answers the question itself.
I mean, I guess a hot dog man is going away then.
Aw, man, call me a felon because I Sukhoi these nuts. Like it's man. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Gunfox, who puts in a $20 donation, actually puts in two $20 donations. And thank you very much, Gunfox, for that support twice. And the first one, he said, 1340, the Black Death Massacre, between 100 to 3,000 killed in Black Death riots in Erfurt, Germany, part of a wave of pogroms across Western Europe. In 1610, King James I of England and the VI of Scotland addresses the England Commons.
The English Commons.
Yes, the English Commons.
The England Commons. Like the England Commons. But beyond that, the Black Death was something that was interesting. Quite interesting indeed, because they actually say that it could have been avoided with simple sanitation, but back then, that was not known. Well, you know, the results were quite obvious. They did have hygiene, by the way, in the medieval age. It's just, the Middle Ages. Just wanted you all to know that. But it wasn't the hygiene that we would know of today. Like, for example, you know, replacing the straw in your bed. They didn't know about that. The fleas love the straw. But I do thank you for the support and sharing that. And also, Erfurt, Germany is an incredibly cool place. Let me go and show it to y'all. I want to get the pictures. Here we are, Erfurt, Germany. Take a gander at it. It's an original German town.
That's somewhat rare at this point.
That is somewhat rare. I mean, but look at it. Look at the natural beauty of the city of Erfurt. Really an amazing place.
You gotta admire the architecture, like the different roofs at different levels and stuff, and how they link up with the one building to another. You gotta admire that.
You have to respect it. You have to appreciate it. You really do have to. You have to. It's
I bet the
law.
beer flows plentiful here.
You know it flows plentifully. Is that a station? Erfurt? Oh? What's this?
It's Deutsche Bahn.
It's Deutsche Bahn, the trains that work. And look at that. I'm not sure if that is the ICE high speed. I don't think it is. But I forgot what this one's called. It's like the thing that's like the halfway house to high speed, but it's not. No, actually, that is the high speed. Yeah, that's the actual high speed. Passes through Erfurt, interesting enough. And look, there's an original ICE 1.
Damn, ICE has hypersonic trains now. They're getting crazy out here.
Bro, deportations have never been faster.
Oh, man, they're hitting Mach speeds now.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, man. Like, honestly, here to Salvador in, 24 hours. And apparently that also extends to U.S. citizens now as well, if you do the wrong things. But still, a very nice train station, I have to say. Very nice indeed. And I got to tell you, I just love looking at train stations. The architecture, the style, the absolute aura. It's a wonderful thing. But anyways, we'll move on from that. I do have to say, though, that I thank you for sharing that little tidbit of info, because I do want to make sure that we rabbit hole in these piece by piece here, Gunfox. And also, let's see, part of a wave of pogroms across Western Europe. That was actually a little bit common at the time for pogroms to happen against Jewish communities inside of the cities. It was actually, it was a very interesting thing how that worked in the medieval era, because usually in most cities where there was a Jewish population, they would have a Jewish quarter, and usually Jewish people would not travel out of that quarter, and non-Jewish people wouldn't enter the quarter. If Jewish people traveled out of the quarter, there's a chance they'd probably get killed in the middle of the street. If non-Jews entered the Jewish quarter, there's a pretty decent chance that they could be killed in the middle of the street, and no one would do anything about it. So, it was kind of like that at the time, but there were usually a whole bunch of wild things that would lead to the pogroms, of course, usually as wild as the pogrom itself, and pretty horrific. But beyond that, it's a very odd time in European history. Honestly, though, there is one video game that actually kind of like depicts a pogrom and kind of the underlying motives under them fairly well, which actually would be the game Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, because they actually depicted the pogrom of Kudenberg, nowadays known as Kudna-Ora, in 1403 in the game, and it was actually a fairly interesting and fairly realistic depiction of what a pogrom would look like and the reasons leading up to one. So I was like, that's a really interesting kind of thing. I honestly would encourage folks to go check it out, because as far as like a semi-realistic depiction of one, it's about as close as it could get to the source material in a game. So, of course, not anything to, like, be like, wow, this is so great, but it is an interesting look into something that happened fairly commonly, at least within medieval Europe during those centuries. But beyond that, let's see here. King James I of England and King James VI of Scotland. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that. During that time, they had different names. Well, actually, I believe they still do. The King of England is the King of England and Scotland, but they also have different names. So James I of England was James VI of Scotland at the exact same time, and held the crown of Scotland and England simultaneously due to some marriages that happened in between the Scottish and English royal families. But very interesting here that that happened at this very time, right here, right now, pretty much to the day, I suppose. But nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for supporting up with this channel to keep on running, Gunfox. And also, what was the next super chat, man? Because I understand there's more days in history from that.
Yes, the second day of history, or day in history, if I can say it right, from Gunfox in a $20 super chat. And once more, thank you very much, Gunfox, for the second support. He said, 1871, Otto von Bismarck elevated to the rank of First Prince. 1885, second French government of Ferry resigns. 1907, the U.S. sends troops to Honduras to halt the takeover of. Let's see here. Why is this not coming through? Are you seeing this, Enforcer?
The Nicaraguan army?
Yes, that's it. And then 1918, World War I, Germany launches some offensive. Question from the chat.
The Somme? Dude, the butchering, like the butchering on that one. We
I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to read a side message at the same time. I was trying to see what this was. It was coming on the email real quick. I was like, "What is this?" So I was trying to read that and also read the super chat. So sorry for butchering it, Gunfox.
We got something on the scanner. Breaking. But beyond that,
no.
but anyways, thank you for the support again, Gunfox61, and to address your additional add-ins. Otto von Bismarck was probably one of the most important statesmen to creating the modern unified Germany we see today. He really was the guy who did that for the large part. And that was thanks to a whole bunch of statesmanship that he was able to do during the middle of the 19th century and the latter part of it as well. Let's see here. The second French government resigned in 1885. That is quite true. But France has always had a turbulent time with their internal political situation, to say the least. And also, let's see, the U.S. sent troops to Honduras to halt the Nicaraguan army takeover. The U.S. actually was heavily involved during the supposed isolationist period in American affairs, and the U.S. Army would go anywhere and everywhere, usually through Central America and also the Caribbean. We pretty much went down there and were just having a go at something all the time, which is something that people don't know a lot about. But that is true. We actually did do that at the time. And also, I believe it was either Panama or Nicaragua where the Tommy gun was first tested in combat. And that was in the 1920s by, I believe, the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Marines. And that was when it was actually introduced as I believe it was the model 1928. Thompson. Let me go see if I can show that to y'all. Yeah, here we go. So this was the Tommy gun that the Navy and the Marines were carrying in Nicaragua back in the late 20s. And there were some problems. One, the drum mag sucks. Everyone agrees the drum mag sucks and it's terrible. It rattled a lot. That's something that a lot of people complain about, is that there was never anything of being super quiet with this thing, because all of the 100 or so 45 ACP rounds in the thing rattled like a snake everywhere you went. Another thing that people didn't like was the gooseneck stock. I'll be personally honest, I don't like it either. And another thing that people complained about was that the rate of fire was just too damn fast. The original fire rate of a Tommy gun, I believe, was somewhere up to like 1,200 rounds a minute. So it was like a zip gun nearly. So they lowered the fire rate on later editions of it, especially the actual mass-produced one that was made for World War II. And I believe the fire rate on that one was closer to 700 rounds a minute. But that is an interesting little fact about the U.S. Military in Nicaragua, for the large part, at least historically. And moving on from that one and on into some other rabbit holes that Gunfox 61 had. Let's see. Germany launches the Somme offensive in 1918. Oh, the Somme, or as Matthew put it, the Somme. It was something.
The Somme offensive. I tell you what, that was a Somme offensive right there. I tell you what, you got to remember that one.
Man, let me go see if I can pull up the Somme offensive for all y'all. Show a little bit to you. So basically, it's the Severonsky Forest. Also, that literally, Matthew, honestly looks just like a battlefield in Ukraine right now, with like the destroyed vehicles on the side of the road, the burnout trees, the craters.
Yeah. They say war never changes, and it really does not. Even as far back as this was until now, it looks identical.
Man, honestly, it's like the exact. Is that a Cybertruck? I'm just kidding. But anyways, moving on. Like,
oh no,
oh no, buddy. Beyond that, the second battle of the Somme was an interesting one. The Germans tried to break through. They ended up not breaking through. As you can see, the results. Let me see if I can get you all the results. It was an Allied victory. The Americans held the Somme along with the Canadians, and they were not happy about that. The Germans weren't. They weren't happy about that at all, and especially when the Meuse-Argonne offensive began not that much longer after. But you know, it was not a great thing for the Germans. Let's just say that at a minimum. But beyond that, I do thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And unfortunately, Gunfox, I'll be honest with you, I kind of screwed myself up, because instead of thinking of the Battle of the Somme in 1918, I was thinking about the original one, which I just saw right there. I was like, oh, there it is. And I was able to be like, yeah, you know, like 16,000 British soldiers died on day one. It was also the first time that tanks were used. And I was going to say all those things, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is the second Battle of the Somme with the AEF instead. And I was like, oh, well, you know, all that goes out the window. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Gunfox 61, because if it wasn't for your support, we wouldn't be able to go into such interesting and succulent rabbit hole meals and get to talk about such fascinating things as all of these different years in history. And so with that, a massive thanks to you once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here, and also big thanks to Gunfox, by the way, for that $40 support, and also the days in history, which were very fascinating. But our next one here goes to Nova Stardust, who puts in a 20 as well, and thank you, thank you very much, Nova, for the support. While I hack away, thank you very much for supporting the channel and helping to keep it running. And there was no comment left by Nova, but nonetheless, we appreciate that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you for the support, Nova Stardust, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so I got to thank you massively once again for that. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, guess what? We always do this every single time. We always forget the question from the chat from Gunfox, because we get so deep in the rabbit hole. So we are returning back to Gunfox's super chat. That's 2 strikes for us tonight. I butchered his last one, and now we forgot the question. So we're about to have a 3rd strike, hopefully not. But let's see. Gunfox's question goes to Valsur, who says, what happened if no one buys the F-47, meaning other countries?
The F-47 is not going to be for sale. Usually whenever we create a air superiority fighter, it's usually, if not ever, for sale to anyone. The only exception...
I thought he said that he was going to give a lesser export variant of the F-47 to other countries if they want to buy it.
I'm personally doubting that, because, like, I'll give the caveat, it's not for sale to anyone unless if they're Israel. Like, that's going to be the actual way it works, because I don't believe the F-15 is in use by a large number of countries worldwide. I think it's Israel. I think the Saudis have a few, but not really many people have the F-15. Let me go check. So, Yeah, I was dead on the money. So it's the U.S., Saudi Arabia, Israel, South Korea has the F-15E, and then Japan also has some F-15s as well. But it's a very, very limited number. It's not like the F-35, where literally everyone and their dog gets one, or, for example, the F-16. Let me go show the list of F-16 users, because this is a multi-role, and it's not the greatest thing that America had, even at the time when it was put into service. So if we go and look at the user map on this, it's going to be fairly extensive. There's the user map.
Fascinating. That's actually quite a decent number.
Yeah, as compared to this with the F-15 or with the F-22. Let me go show you all the user list on the F-22. Oh, wait, I
Things like
forgot.
a mile down.
There isn't one because America's the only one that uses it.
Did you know that before you started scrolling down?
Yeah, I did, because if you look
Oh.
right here, primary user, U.S. Air Force, that is it. That we never export sold F-22s. The F-47 will probably never be export sold because it's an air superiority fighter, and we generally have a trend of not really selling them, unless if it's like, for example, the F-15. And if you're Israel, Japan, or Saudi Arabia, you can get one, but no one else can. So that's probably how it ended up being. So I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least as far as the whole F-47 thing right there. But I have a feeling that this thing will probably not be sold a lot out there. It probably will be American through and through, even in its actual use and operation. But with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And with that, I hope that does address that live chat, Gunfox. Sorry that we missed that. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to none other than Flash One, who's another channel legend, by the way, and throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Flash, for also helping to keep the channel running once again, and we appreciate it. And Flash said, "Hi, Enforcers, great to see you both, and great to see you, Flash." He said, "Also, hello to the LSA, now trains." Oh, no. He said, "Have you looked at a train in northern Sweden to goes to the coast through Norway? Coal train, I think. And keep up the good work, and live chat question, please."
And I thank you for the support, and I thank you for giving me the chance to talk about trains. It's something that we have a big passion for on the channel. Right, Matthew? Right? We have a big passion for it.
Oh, yes, a real burning passion for those trains. I'm telling you, it's just that those metal wheels on those metal tracks, I tell you, it just rivets the soul or something.
Now, let's look at this northern, and what, northern Norwegian train? Mm-hmm.
Northern Sweden.
Northern Sweden. Okay, let's take a gander. Well, here's a coal mine. This is probably a good starting point. Any railroad lines through this area? No? Huh? What the hell? Oh, I mean, there's one. So let's follow that in. I lost him. Oh, nope, there it is. Where in the hell? Where in the hell? Let's see here. So, oh, here we go. So maybe this will give us a start, perhaps. Oh, look, they have a statue to the railroad workers. That's actually kind of a cool one.
That is actually not that bad. Like, I'm not a huge fan of railroads, but I do like the labor behind the railroad. Like, it takes a lot of labor to lay that track.
Man, better be careful. If you say Union behind that, you might go to prison these days. But let's see.
Well, Union Pacific.
Oh God, prison! Like, it's man. But beyond that, take a look at these coal hoppers right here. Those are some wild-looking coal hoppers. Honestly, they look like iron ore hoppers with how they're shaped. Maybe they are. I don't know. But that is an interesting. We also see the passenger train. Honestly, it looks. That is an AEM-7 that Amtrak used back in the day. Like, I swear that is an AEM-7. That one, like, that looks just like it nearly. I think the wait, hang on. Let's see. No way it is. It actually is designed off of this one right here. The AEM-7 is. So I was dead on the nail. Matthew's like, they all look the same, and they do, because they're all
They
the same.
do. They look the same to me. It's like it's a train. And also, what's that person doing outside that train anyway? They're sitting there like cursing the conductor out or something. I can't tell.
Do you have a license for that thing? Like, it's like,
man, it's a Karen.
It's a Karen. It's a Swedish Karen. That is crazy. But beyond that, that is the EMD, the AEM-7, which is colloquially known as the toaster amongst Amtrak rail fans, because it's shaped like a toaster. But beyond that, A very interesting. I think this is the train you're talking about. I don't really know if we could pull up any specific information about it because a coal train in northern Sweden is kind of like a coal train here in America. It probably wouldn't have a special Wikipedia page for it. But it is pretty neat that there are coal trains in northern Sweden, and that's a giant coal mine, it appears. So that's pretty cool, actually. But beyond that, I got to thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that addresses that somewhat well. But I actually wanted to show y'all something. I've been on Train Sim World recently in my free time, and I've been driving some trains, specifically in Cardiff. Some of y'all who may be rail fans or play railroad games may know that Train Simulator just released their newest route, and it is the Cardiff City Center route. So it is all the little routes through Cardiff City. That's it. There's no other routes outside of it. The farthest north it goes is right here to Thornhill, which is on the very edge of Cardiff. It also goes to Redier, which is also on the very edge of Cardiff, this station in particular. And then it goes down... Wait, hang on. Let me make sure. It goes down to here, like this whole route to Redier is also modeled. And then the route down to, let's see here, where in the world is that station? Yeah, Penarth down here is the southernlymost station. And then they also have the one that goes to Cardiff Bay right there. So you have the entire Cardiff, like, transit system modeled on this route. It actually is really cool. I've really been loving it. And I'll show you all why. So this is the station, Cardiff Central, but what is cool about it, and I want to see if I can show it, because they only have a few of these. Let's see. Man, there's so many of them actually in real life, and they only have like 3 of them in the game. Oh man, there are thieves on board the trains, and not only that, gangs roam the halls. Damn, dude, I'm having a hard time finding this, honestly. Oh, here we go. Class 150.
It looks just like a subway car to me, man. Like, you know, it's just a subway.
It's not just a subway. It's a whole mode of transport. It's really like these things.
Oh, it's a lifestyle, is it?
These things are subways. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, they're just above ground subways. You're pretty much dead on the nail. They're diesel powered though. And they're cool. They are pretty neat. So you drive these around and it's just nice because Cardiff is a really nice city. It is just so nice. Y'all want to see it? Y'all don't believe me? I can prove it. Boom.
Hey, Kiwis, man. What is that? A restaurant?
Bro, it's a restaurant about birds. But here is Cardiff. Not a bad looking city.
Not too bad looking. I'll be honest with you, Cardiff wasn't my favorite of Wales. Like, honestly, the Welsh countryside was just goated, honestly. The Welsh countryside was beautiful. Cardiff was okay. I like the other, like, smaller towns in Wales. Cardiff was all right.
Cardiff was good. For a city, it was good. It wasn't bad. There's about 1 million people living in Cardiff, mind you, so don't disown it too much, because if we have any Welsh viewers, chances are there's like a 30% chance they're from Cardiff. So you know, let's keep that in mind. I'm just kidding, by the way. Cardiff was all right. I remember though one thing, Matthew. Remember that time that we walked outside of the hotel? It was this one, and we walked outside, and there were those people riding around the horse-drawn carriage, and they were like shirtless, wearing boxers as they were like driving it, and we just watched them pass by, and we were like, is this like a redneck part of Britain? Like, that's what we asked ourselves. We were like, is this it?
And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, huh, interesting. I think we're in like the British version of Alabama.
And outside of this castle wall here, outside of this wall, it was a sunny day, and it was pretty hot when we went there. It was people were dying of heat stroke. There were people laying out in this old area where the moat used to be around this outer castle wall. There were people laying in it, sun tanning. It was really weird. Like, it was actually weird. But still beyond that, I liked Cardiff. Cardiff was pretty cool. Like, for as far as the cities went in Britain, I liked it a good deal. But I really do like the Cardiff little train route that they have on Train Sim World. I just really, really do appreciate it. Because also, man, that you get to see little nice places like Heath Low Level. And let me show you this. This is the low level.
That looks like a really low level. It's called Leffel Issel Y Minenderd something.
Man, I don't even try and pronounce it. It's like we
go to it and let me take a look at it. Leffel Issel Y Minden Baichan.
Man, you wouldn't even believe how this is probably pronounced in Welsh. Like, we could type this into Google Translate. Google Translate.
Tell us here. I have a feeling I was pretty close.
Welsh to English. What the hell?
That's English to Chinese. It's not even like what you asked.
Let's see here. Welsh We don't want it to Chinese. We don't want it to Chinese. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm good. Here we go. English. So, now let's type this in piece by piece. Let's see. Oh, what? He got rid of all of it. What the hell?
Oh, no.
Okay. Okay, it's going to do that each time, so I just need to remember that. Oh, dang, it's going to get hard now. Oh, damn it.
YDD.
Okay.
AD. There you go. Okay. Baichon.
Okay, so now let's listen to how this is pronounced.
Level Israel a mynydd bychan.
I was close.
You were kind of close. Yeah, you're kind of close. The
See,
low
I have
level.
that Welsh in my blood, you know.
I like how the name in Welsh is literally just the low level of the small mountain. It's like the most.
That's honestly fantastic. I think we are definitely Welsh, because if they got these shirtless people riding around on the horse and buggies, which is their equivalent of a Chevy pickup with the Carolina squat, then I would say that I think we just took Welsh to a whole new level here in Alabama when we came over here.
Man, honestly, this is like the most redneck description of a place that a train could stop at. You're going to the damn low level of the small mountain. Get on. It's like, honestly, I relate to the Welsh on a spiritual level now. I really do understand them, and I relate to them greatly. That is funny though, man. Like that's what I wonder what the other ones mean. Like this one.
Thai glass.
It's Thai glass. So Blue House.
Blue House. Wait a minute, translate from Russian. How the hell did you get Russian out of that?
Boy, you thought we were Welsh, we were Russian all along. It's like
Tea glass.
tea glass.
Tea glass. Okay, well, can you put some tea in the glass? Blue House.
Man, why'd you say it like that guy who went oil on the road? Like you said it like with the same inflection. Let's check out Birch Grove. What is? Oh god, is that? You know, let's see.
Leuenbeld.
A bush. Like it's a bush. Oh man, did someone say bush? Birch bush.
Birch bush, or it could have been a shrubbery before you put the W on it.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, man. Getting directions from a Welsh person in Welsh must be the toughest thing to understand. Oh, you want to find Cardiff? Go to the way near to the Blue House. It's like which one? It's like which one? You're going to go by the hill near the small mountain. It's like good. It's like honestly, man. Honestly, I think I know why, man. Our family has never been that successful at things, because if this is how advanced our natural language of our family is, that we're from the country we're from, and that's how they like speak of things, I think I know why we have not been doing incredibly well historically. After the British beat our folks. Like I think I kind of get it.
We've had a hard run. We've had a very hard run over the history of the whole Welsh countryside. I don't know why I'm adding Bliat, because it's not Russian, but you know it's been a hard run. But you'll see here that Welsh is a very, very strong country. Isn't the let's see, I don't want to sound ignorant here. I'm not an expert on the princes and stuff like that. Isn't the current guy Welsh?
No, he's English. They're all English.
Well, who's somebody's Welsh? There's like a Welsh prince or something.
Oh no, that's just a title they give them. Like they made themselves the Prince of Wales, but they're English. They're English.
Who is it?
Well, right now I think it's Prince
Charles.
No, it's not Charles. It's William. He's the Prince of Wales currently.
Okay, but he's not really Welsh.
No, he's English.
Okay, well, so he just like appointed himself, like like a little bit of something that he's even not.
No, the king appointed him. It's just a title. They're English. They're English, man. That's like that's like being the what is it, Matthew? The senator of Alabama, and you're from Florida. Kind of the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
like kind of the same thing. Also, Matthew, I like how this one
Yr eglwys newydd.
just means the new church. So it's like, yeah, you're gonna go stop by the new church. It's like in Britain, that doesn't mean a damn thing, because every church is like 800 years old. So it's like, which one is technically the newest? Like, it's like, what? I don't even get it. And there's not even a church around this thing. Like, there's not a single. So why is it called the new church? There's not a new church around here. There's not a church at all.
I don't even know, man. I have no idea.
I'm not gonna lie, man. These Welsh people got to get their game together. Landolf, that must be like Gandalf, but Welsh. Let's go take it. Oh, man, this be looking like rural Alabama right here. Yeah, but beyond that, what does this mean? Landolf. Wait, did I put that in right? Yeah, I did. 2 L's. It means Landolf.
I think it's I thought it was an O instead of an A. Landaff.
Oh, wait a minute, hang on. Yeah. Land.
Okay.
Yes.
Land.
I'd like 1 ticket, please. I'd like a ticket to land. You're on it now. Like, yes, I'd like a ticket to land, though. Could you take me to land? Like, that would make sense, dude, if you were, like, on a ship. But you're on a damn train. So, like, yes, I'm on Cardiff Central on hard, solid land. I would like to have a train take me to land, please. I think someone will look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah, they probably would, honestly. I'm beginning to see why we have issues because we come from here.
Yes. What is Wongron Park? Man, people love taking pictures of those 153s. Park Wongron. Oh, I think that just means Wongron Park in the Welsh. Hold up. Dude, honestly, this is a trip looking around at these names in Welsh and what they actually mean. Oh, we're getting somewhere.
Park.
Stork Round Park.
Stork Round Park.
Man, stork around and find out park. Like,
Man, I'm going to stork off on you.
Man. Oh, the Golden Star of Cardiff. It's Chinese takeout. No way.
Whoa, look at that S2000. Oh my God, man. Somebody's got a really nice S2000 right there. Those aftermarket wheels didn't do it any favors, I don't think, but that's damn nice right there.
Man, I'm not going to lie, man. I'm not going to lie. That is actually pretty nice to be around Stork Park or whatever it was, just Stork Round Park. Yeah, there we go. But anyways, with that, I hope y'all had a kick looking at the actual Welsh names of train stations in Cardiff, because I didn't know that they like actually made no sense. I always just thought it was like the name but in Welsh. It's a totally different name in Welsh that makes no sense. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one. But thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it's a really weird thing how we made it to Cardiff after talking about Swedish coal trains. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also someone's insulting the S2000. Don't you dare do that, Fighting Finn. The S2000 is a legend. It's a very interesting, very small car. I saw one in person. It's actually extremely small. I was like, wow, that's like a micro-sized car right there. That's crazy. But anyways, jumping on to our next super chat. This one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a 15. And thank you very much, Margaret, as well for that support. And we do appreciate it very much. And Margaret said, I got got a phone call from a Russian number yesterday. The SVR have found me. Oh, gasp. True story. Knock, knock. Who's there? The KGB. The KGB. Well, KGB slaps face. We will ask the questions. You Sigma. Margaret, I think there's a problem with that because we will ask the questions, and that is German. That is a German accent, I'm afraid, right there. So I mean, maybe it's the KGB. Sounds like a fraud to me. I think they were frauding. But Enforcer, what say you?
You will go on the list. They seek off mine list. But beyond that, thank you for the support, Margaret Hemsley. That was this channel to keep on running. I gotta say, thank you for saying that we're Sigma. Sigma Skibbity Toilet. And I gotta thank you once again for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, that was an interesting one. That was an interesting one for sure. And
if you ever hear someone who claims to be KGB saying, we will ask the questions and you will go to the gulag, you might want to question that because if they're talking about gulags and they sound German, that there might be something amiss.
Man, one thing that you just, that's something you never want to deal with right there. That's scary. That's really scary. But beyond that, I do thank you once again for support, Margaret Hemsley, and helping this channel to keep on running. And the punchline was pretty good. I liked it. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Plazoth, who puts in a 13. And thank you very much, Plazoth, as well for that support. He said, donation in the name of Marc-Andre Burnett, as he did for me some time ago, and have a question from the chat and LLT, LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we're happy to know that you also enjoy it and like to support the channel and helping to keep on running. And we will make sure to get a live chat question in your honor. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question goes to John Underwood, who said, have you heard anything else about a possible coup in China?
We haven't heard anything about it additionally today. It's something that's kind of being kept a little under wraps. But if there's any major developments, we should hear about it again pretty easily. But for today, we haven't. But I do thank you for asking an interesting question. I thank you for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running in honor of Marc-Andre Brunet. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Uncovered Cube 7, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Uncovered Cube, as well, for that support. And they said, check out Sergeant Reckless. She was an awesome story of an animal during combat.
Sergeant Reckless. Sergeant Reckless. It was an American war horse, and here it is in retirement. Quite a horse.
Oh, look at that. Reckless, I'll tell you what. He was always known for being reckless.
Ah, the horse. It has always been known to be reckless. It is out of a racehorse dam, purchased in 1952 for $250 from a Korean stable boy. But let's see here. She quickly became a para unit, allowed to roam freely throughout the camp, entering the Marines' tents, where she would sleep on cold nights, and was known for her willingness to eat nearly anything, including scrambled eggs, beer, which I wouldn't advise feeding to a horse, Coca-Cola, and once about $30 worth of poker chips. I have a feeling that this thing wasn't known for its dietary excellence. But let's see. It served during the Korean War, carrying supplies and munitions. It also evacuated wounded. Let's see. Let's see. She made 51 solo trips to resupply multiple frontline units. She was wounded in combat twice and was given the rank of corporal in 1953, and then a battlefield promotion to sergeant in 1954, several months after the war ended. She also became the first horse in the Marine Corps known to have participated in an amphibious landing, and following the war was awarded with 2 Purple Hearts and a Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal. Inclusion in her unit's presidential unit citations from 2 countries and other military honors. It appears that this horse was out there slinging hash. And I get to thank you for the support and sharing that, because I've never really heard the story of Sergeant Reckless of the 1st Marine Division, but now I have, and we'll never be able to forget this horse and its hoofed ambitions to become that of which the NCOs could only dream of being. And I get to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say this, with this horse still being a horse, this horse has a face better looking than another sergeant that we know, whose name is Hot Dog Man. Still better looking than the Hot Dog Man. But beyond that, I think it was
He was a sergeant.
Yeah, remember he was an E5, Matthew, somehow, some way.
I thought he was a PFC.
No, he should have been PVC, but no, he was a sergeant at some point, I believe, according to his own story, although that might be dubious. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Purple Gerbil, who puts in the 10. And thank you very much, Purple Gerbil, as well, for that support once more. And we appreciate it very much. And Mr. Gerbil said, do you think the fire at Heathrow is start of more false flags in Europe by Russia and LSA forever?
It may possibly be. We're not entirely sure. But depending on the outcome of that investigation, we may figure out who was behind it. It may not even be the Russians. It may actually be a terrorist group of a different kind, possibly based out of the Middle East. But it may be terrorist-based or some sort of a false flag by the Russians. But unfortunately, we wouldn't really be able to know yet. But it wouldn't be out of the question to say it was the Russians, because the Russians have been going around conducting acts of sabotage a pretty decent amount. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nightmare Before Christmas, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Mr. Nightmare Before Christmas, for that support. They said, did you guys see the Prince went to our deployment in Estonia? The UK government seems serious about something, and I have a feeling... Oh, that scared the hell out of me. That's the dog. But let me restart that, by the way. They said, did you guys see the Prince went to our deployment in Estonia? The UK government seems serious about something, and I have a feeling it's the info shared by Poland, and Russia is up to something, and LSA.
I thank you for the support. I haven't heard about the royal family's activities from the United Kingdom. Interesting here that the Prince, I'm assuming Prince William is in Estonia, but I would assume that that may just be an extension of his official duties, because they usually travel around a little bit. And once again, the royal family is more so in a morale support role than a direct combat role. At least in their current capacity, at least the Prince of Wales would be, because he's already served his tenure in the military, in most of the family has. So I would say that's interesting to hear. But but I'm not really sure if that would be indicative of anything major, because he's, not exactly, going to be leading them. He's just going to be there more so for moral support like they have been throughout the past few centuries. But nevertheless, I thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, the noise, I don't know if you could hear that in the background or not, but one of the corgis just woke up and nearly tried to break loose just out of the blue. So I think they calmed back down. Just a little bit of a worrisome moment for that corgi. But anyways, they didn't bust out. They were not successful. They're still locked up. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to Marin Dukasdian, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Marin, for that support as well. It said, Enforcer Matt, could the earthquake in Iran be the result of an underground nuclear test detonation? And I think the Enforcer believes it's no. Me personally, I would say it's still possible because Iran doesn't usually take precautions per se when it comes to the safety of their civilians. So I wouldn't put it past them to say they might try to blow one up underground, doing an underground nuclear test, even with it being close to a populated area. I would say it's probably like a 50-50 chance, though. It's not a certainty, but I would say 50-50. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it's unlikely near to Natanz, because I would agree with Matthew. They don't really care about civilians, but one thing they would care about is causing enough seismic activity that they end up damaging the centrifuges that create the nuclear fuel in the nuclear bombs. That I have a feeling they would be concerned about. So they would probably test it near other civilians that weren't near to a nuclear weapons and research program. So in my opinion, I'd say it's a little unlikely that they would have conducted a nuclear bomb test pretty much right on top of their centrifuges, because that could cause a considerable amount of damage to those centrifuges that they would use to produce more nuclear weapons. So I would have to say it's probably unlikely in this particular instance, but other seismic activity highly likely would probably be some form of a nuclear test. Also, what is this historic castle? That's not a castle, that's a rock. And I think these people lied to create a tourist attraction. There is no castle there. I don't know what they're talking about. Also, hold up. There's some other sites around this area, like the Tama waterfall.
I've heard that people drank plenty of water from this. Some people drinking more water at a rate that they're not really equipped to handle.
What do you mean?
Like I've heard some people might have gotten waterboarded.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure they have. It's like, honestly, now that you put it that way, who could disagree? It's really. Been interesting, very interesting place. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. Thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Jenna, last name Tolls, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Jenna, for that $10 support. And they put in a spicy joke here that I can't even repeat. Because guess what, Jenna? I don't get all of them all the time, but I do get this one. And this is quite actually a very intellectual joke. It took some playing on the words to figure this out, like a wordsmith. But sadly, I can't read it though, because it would sound very atrocious if I read it. But Enforcer, do you see it?
I thank you for the support, and I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. I do see it, and fortunately, we will have to pass on reading that one off. But I do thank you massively for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kaltapa Rescue, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Kaltapa, for that support as well. They said F-47 Tankman, F-47 Black Mamba, F-47 Ebola. Is that the ideas for the F-47, by the way? I'm not a fan of Ebola. I think that would be a bad one. But the other two aren't that bad, though. But Enforcer, tell us what you think.
What if we called it I'm just playing. Whoa. But I'm just playing. I'm just kidding. I do thank you for the support. Those aren't bad ideas. Ebola, a little bit on the rough side, but the other ones, not that bad. Maybe we can consider them. Maybe do a couple of surveys, see if people like them or not. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. Also, I saw Tom Maxman say, this is a family show. Yeah, this is about as much of a family show as Family Feud. Have you seen Family Feud lately, Matthew?
Yeah, I've seen Family Feud getting real sexual on the air, which is kind of crazy.
Man, they'd be like, what is something that Abraham Lincoln would have ridden on in his life? And then it'd be like a horse, a wagon, a train, his wife, and it's like, and he's like, what? Holy moly! his wife, and then it's like up on the board. It's like honestly, that's like the shock value has been lost at this point because it's always like one of those answers that's right. So it's like it's not even that shocking anymore, to be entirely honest. But we're PG-13 like that. Like we were PG-13 up until the point that it really almost isn't, but we're still on the borderline. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. With that, it's time for us to move on to the next one. And thank you once again for the funny content right there. But we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jenna, last name Tolls once again, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Jenna, for the second support of the night. And I must admit, after the first, my shields are now up. The shields are activated. I'm scared. It's F-47 something. I'm not sure what this means behind it. Jenna has a way with finding ways around the censorship. So I'm not sure about this. But Enforcer, take a look and see what you think.
I'm going to take a gander, and I'm gonna take a look. And if it looks bad, we're going to have to skip it. And I don't know what that means. So unfortunately, we're going to have to skip it. Because if I don't know what it means, we can't read it. I'm sorry, it's scary. But I do thank you for the support once again, Jenna, last name Tolls, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I wish we could read it, but sadly, we have to stay safe. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Mr. Bang Bang, for that support. And he said, for the hot sauce fun, because Khamenei continues his predictable angry seething on Twitter, like a hot pepper who might be getting a wash of cold water soon by the U.S. military. And it's true. Like, Khamenei has a Twitter account, which is insane to me because Twitter is a Western company. But he jumps on there, or either he has his assistants or somebody jump on there, and he goes on these delusional rants on a regular daily basis against the West, saying the most crazy crap you've ever seen on Twitter. And it's just wild that the guy's on there like that. But yeah, it's just insanity. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to say that in my honest opinion, I would have to say also, Matthew, could you restate that again, because I just saw something that came through. I was kind of distracted like you were earlier. I just saw something come through, and I'm just absolutely like, at this point, man, I'm absolutely lost where to go forward with that one. I don't know if you saw it, but it's over the Twitter DMs. I'm absolutely lost where to go with responding to that anymore. But what was that again?
So, Mr. Bang Bang said, Khamenei's continuing his angry Twitter rampages. What do you think?
I think the guy is just delusional. Just a little crazy, to be entirely honest. And that would be my take on it for the large part. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rye Guy SR, who puts in a 10 as well. And thank you very much, Rye Guy, for that support. They said, another great show, guys. And do North Korea and Russia have a railroad that connect on their land bridge? And if not, where do the trains go to get Russia and the North Korean weapons? LSA, Slav Ukraine, and God bless the USA.
They and God bless the USA. And they do actually have a train bridge. It's this one bridge. That's the only one, though, that crosses in between Russia and North Korea. Usually the North Koreans actually ship the munitions to the Russian railroads at Vladivostok by sea, and then it's travels the rest of the way through Russia by rail. We do believe that there is some railroad traffic, but it's a little bit more minimal in terms to the naval traffic in between North Korea and Russia. So they do conduct some cross-border railroad traffic, but it's mostly done by sea. And so with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Sully Canuck, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Sully, as well, for that support. He said, great job as always, fellas. And thank you, Sully. He said, still hanging with you. And LSA.
And thank you so much for still hanging with us, Sully. And thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And we wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. And so big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Tom Exman, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Tom, for that support as well. And thank you for supporting the channel once again. And he said, and Tom's always putting out these donations or these calls and announcements right here. I always feel torn about reading them. But he says, Enforcers could use more super chats and take a live chat.
I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. But no one has to support the channel if they don't want to. You only have to support it if you really want to. If you are in a financial strait, you don't have to. And if you are financially well off and you don't want to, you don't have to either. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Tom Exman. And I thank you for appreciating enough that you would want to support it and help it to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the live chat question in honor of Tom goes to Snowy, who said, "What, in your opinion, did the U.S. military learn from the most recent of the current wars, especially regarding drones?" And what they should have learned is that it's important to have very high rates of attritable drones. That should be what they learned. Now, if they come out of this entire situation and what they do in response to it is start building wildly expensive non-disposable drones, that'll tell you that they pretty much learned nothing, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that that's probably the most important thing that they learned is that to have a large amount of expendable drones that can be used in an indirect fire support role, almost like mortars would have been used as in the past. I think that's really the most important thing that could have been learned from this war at this point, and also having proper anti-drone countermeasures to be able to deal with them. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for sponsoring a live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sully Canuck once again, who puts in the 10. And thank you very much, Sully, for that support once more. And he said, when British North America Act created our country in 1867, it was named the Dominion of Canada, and the government officially dropped Dominion in 1982. And today, the official name of the country is Canada.
Thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I did look at it off screen, and apparently, really quickly, official name of Canada. Official name of Canada. What is the proper name of Canada? Let's see here. One second. Hang on here. Hang on. So the Canadian Encyclopedia, which appears to be a Canadian government website possibly, or it's just a website from Canada, says that the official name is still the Dominion of Canada. That might be wrong. But that's what I was running with earlier when someone said it was the Dominion of Canada, and now I'm confused. I don't know if it is Canada or the Dominion of Canada. Because I've never heard it called the State of Canada. I've only ever heard it really called the Dominion of Canada in an official name or just Canada. So I'm a little confused at this point, but I'll have to do some more research and see which one it really is. Is it the Dominion of Canada or is it Canada? Because now I'm hearing from two different Canadians, two different answers. And so with that, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And the plot thickens on what the actual name of Canada really is. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kevin, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Kevin, as well, for supporting the channel. He said, I worked in the defense industry. Designations are given years in advance. And at least admit you have no evidence. This is a political issue. And you always say this is not a political channel.
I thank you for the support. I know it was a political decision because, when in the world has the number ever matched the current sitting president of the United States' sequential number of being the president? And also, he stated at the briefing today, if you watched it, that the generals that were all around him said that would be the good moniker to pick for that. So let's just call it the F-47. That's what he said. So they obviously didn't say that to him in 2020, and they obviously didn't say that to him in any other year prior to that. He said that as that just happened. So, that's his own words. So unless you're telling me that listening to exactly what the president says is wrong now, I don't really know how to work with that. So with that, I hope that does address that well. I thank you once again for supporting helping this channel to keep it running. I don't really know why that's political to say, because also based off of the naming monikers for aircraft, there is a certain kind of sequential number it's supposed to take, and 47 is way far away from any aircraft that's been introduced so far. The highest number up that we've made it to so far is the F-35, which even is out of sequence. So moving all the way up to F-47 is quite a deliberate move. So that's the best answer I can give to it, because it's like, how in the world do we go from the F-22 to the F-35, which the F-35 thing was a whole screw up because someone went with the prototype number of it and then just acted like that was going to be its actual number and then it stuck. But this one though, there's nothing with that. It is just the F-47 for the hell of it. So that's what I have to say. So anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well. Also, someone said a P-47. That's not a thing though, because it the P-47 is the Thunderbolt. That was its name. The A-10 is the Thunderbolt 2. So why didn't they call that the A-47? They didn't call it the A-47. It was going off of a specific numbering moniker that has been accepted in the armed forces for decades at that point. So instead of calling the A-10 Warthog the A-47 Warthog, or the official A-47 Thunderbolt 2, they called it the A-10 Thunderbolt 2. So if that was the way it worked, then we would see that they would have changed the A-10 to the A-47. They didn't. So this is something that is a little bit more on the nose than anything. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, I gotta say, like, I gotta be entirely honest. Like, I'm getting so tired of everyone trying to say that we're getting political here. Like, I just say things that are common sense. Like I say, the Gulf of Mexico is the Gulf of Mexico. It's been that way my entire life. That's how I know I'm going to keep calling it that. So people want to make that political, like I hate Trump, and they did the same shit with Biden. Like, I'd say something like I didn't like something Biden was doing, so all of a sudden I'm a hater on Biden. Like I gotta ask y'all, I gotta beg of y'all to stop. Like, please, like, to the folks who do that, everything I say is not political, and it's not inherently supposed to be making me political. It's just really tiresome to deal with that. It's stupid as shit, to be entirely honest, because I'm out here trying to give, like, an opinion on something, because it's quite obvious it's being named the F-47 because he's the 47th president of the United States. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that one. So, you know, it's a little bit goofy to say how in the world could that even be considered political. It's quite clear that it is. Like, there's no other way to look at it. It's kind of like renaming the Gulf of America, or, like, for example, when Obama renamed Fort Benning to Fort Liberty or whatever it was called, or Fort Moore. It's the exact same thing. It's a political thing. And why the hell should names be dictated by political whims? It doesn't make any sense. So anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to another channel legend. This time it is Ari Sowini, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Ari, for that $20 support, and we appreciate it very, very much. And it said, LSA, best channel, and keep it up, please.
And I thank you for the support. And open this channel to Game Rain. Thank you so much for the kind words. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. So a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to, let's take a look. This one is going to go to Ed, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Ed, for that $10 support. He said, LSA, Irish Ed here. And what kind of train was on the movie The Quiet Man? John Wayne and Mara O'Hara, filmed in Ireland by John Ford. I'm a guy, but I love that movie.
Let's see here. Let me go pull that up. The Quiet Man train. Let's take a gander here. Let's take a gander. Can I find a picture of it? So apparently this is the one. It had the number 69, nice, on the train. I can't really tell what it is from this angle. I actually cannot. I can't even give you a hint of what this thing is. It's also British in design, so this kind of an era of locomotives or trains in Britain, I don't really know a lot about. My knowledge of British locomotives comes about in the 30s onwards, but this appears to predate that, possibly the 1910s, because it's an Atlantic. Well, it kind of looks like an Atlantic. It might be what we would call an... If that is the one, if that's what it actually is, that would actually be technically a 440 American standard, at least by the American designations, but I personally wouldn't know what this actually is. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Irish Ed, and really cool to hear that you like this movie. I've actually never seen this one before, but maybe one day I will. And so with that, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that has addressed it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Junebug72, who puts in a $5 support. And thank you very much, Junebug, for that 5, and we do appreciate it. And I do not see a comment attached. But of course, Junebug is a channel legend, and we do appreciate that support very much. And we also have a 5 from LSA Sergeant Figment, who said it's his birthday, by the way. And happy birthday to you, LSA Sergeant Figment. I hope you've had a good one. Hey! He said, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order. And keep up the great work, boys. And the best birthday gift is listening to the stream tonight. And love Ukraine.
And a huge happy birthday to you, LSA Sergeant Pigman. I hope you've been having a great one. A happy 35th birthday to you. And I thank you so much for being here with us tonight and enjoying the stream and supporting the channel and helping it to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And we wouldn't have been able to be around to celebrate another birthday with you. And so with that, a huge happy birthday to you. Once again, I hope that does address that the best I can. And of course, everyone, please hit the like button. We just passed 3,000 likes, and I think we can get even higher than that. And so with that, a huge congratulations to you once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Siri, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much, Siri, as well, for that support. They say, great job, Enforcer Bros. Thank you very much for that. They said, learned words to Ukraine anthem from this channel and can sing along at protests and marches. Thank you. And XO from Oslo.
Hey, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say, If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And also, really cool to hear that we helped you to learn the actual lyrics to the Ukrainian anthem. And so with that, thank you once again for supporting and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one, the enforcer's chomping at the bits to get to. I can hear it in the voice. This one goes to Kevin once again, who puts in the 20. And this one's conflicting, I'll be honest with you. Thank you, Kevin, for the support. But he said in his message here, which is a little bit odd, he said, dude, I wasn't trying to be political. It didn't work that way in my day. No need to attack me for expressing my experience in the industry. I was unaware of that statement. I will look it up. But the thing is, Kevin, though, we've gone through this before. This is not the only night you've said things like this. Your original super chat accused us of getting political and basically took a shot at us. So that was sort of like a little bit odd. So honestly, it sounded like you were trying to get political. Which when someone says we're getting political, usually that's somebody's way of saying you're disagreeing with my politics, and I don't want you to express your opinion because you disagree with me. That's basically what that says. And another person did that on a Twitter DM just a moment ago as well for the 50th time. I was like, oh my God, like how many times are we going to go through this? Like with the same thing like Groundhog Day. But no, we don't get political here on domestic issues. But when we talk about something like a fighter jet, and and here's straight up, folks, it's called the F-47. The 47th president's currently in office. Obviously, there's a correlation. I don't think anybody disputes that. So, you know, they may not have said it directly that it was named after him, but it's obviously named after him. I mean, there's no dispute about that because it doesn't follow the naming convention. But Enforcer, what say you?
Also, really quickly, you say you weren't getting political. Let me go back and read your super chat so that way I can say it is. This is the exact excerpt from the chat that tells me that it was a political statement. At least admit you have no evidence this is a political issue, period. You always say this is not a political channel, period. So in those two sentences, you alleged that we were becoming political on this channel by saying that the number 47 shouldn't have been the one picked because it's a political action in its own right. Based off a statement he made, which is why I made the statement that I was saying, because he said today the generals told him that 47 was a good number and they just went with that very recently. That's the exact way he said it. That's why I was saying that seems really wrong to pick a name for a fighter and make the number a political sort of a thing. I don't like that. So your response was to insinuate I was getting political in your first super chat. And I've got to be honest with you, I've been doing this for 3 years. I didn't fall off the wagon yesterday doing this. And I've seen many people make super chats or comments like that at all in the live chat, and I always know where that's going. It always is going in a direction where someone's about to allege that we're political. I know, and I know where that one's going in particular. It's going in the direction, I will assume, because I'm not really that strong about trying to hide the names anymore, so still non-political, but I'm not going to hide the names. I'm going to assume that you're probably a Republican, and you don't like it that I said that the number shouldn't be after the 47th president of the United States, who is a Republican. It should follow the naming convention and numbering conventions that have been laid out over decades, and you took affront to that. So you're trying to use my own no politics rule against me to beat me down and further your idea that it should be called the F-47. That's what you were probably trying to do. Because I've dealt with that in the past, back when Biden was president, when we would say something that was not necessarily that positive of Biden's foreign policy decisions, then Democrats would come in here and they would use the exact same kind of justifications to get their idea across and try and use my own no politics rule against me to try and beat me down and make me agree with them, or act like Biden could do nothing wrong, or that Biden does everything right. I've been around the block on that a lot of times. We like it's a really tiresome thing to even have insinuated, because we keep this thing as non-political as possible, and the military shouldn't be involved in politics. Naming something the F-47 is quite obviously a hit at the 47th president, because when in the world has the number of an aircraft that's ever been put into service ever matched up with the number of the president that's currently in right now? When has that ever happened? It's never happened, like ever. Like I cannot think of a single time that has actually happened. So to say that it happens this time and then it's just a coincidence, that's a little bit odd, especially considering that this current president has already set a trend of renaming things just for the hell of it. Like, for example, the Gulf of America. America. So to make the idea that the name of the entire aircraft couldn't be renamed, or the number of the entire aircraft couldn't be renumbered to match the number president that he is a little bit outlandish to act like that couldn't happen, considering that in other instances things have already been renamed with the exact same kind of idea in mind to try and create some form of legacy in that perspective. So with that, I hope that does address that well. I'm not attacking you, but I will say that I get very tired of people trying to insinuate that we are political, and then honestly, like in that kind of an instance, when I get tired of it and exasperated with it, and then I push back, then people want to act like they were never insinuating that we were political in the first place. Like reading that first super chat, there's no other way to interpret it. You were trying to insinuate that we were becoming what do folks call it? Liberals, snowflakes, something like that. Like it's something like that. And there's no other way that we could read that. I do thank you for the support though, but I hope you see where we're coming from. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the B-Man, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, B-Man, as well, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And B-Man said, thank you. LSA Canadian cousin here.
Hey, and thank you so much for support. And thank you for being all the way from Canada, another LSA member from the beautiful country of Canada. And I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and Kevin throws in another one. The saga continues. He throws in 850 this time, and also thank you once again for the support. He said, I tried to admit I was not aware of the statement. I will move on and leave the chat. I've always supported you guys in defense of Ukraine. If I'm wrong, that's fine. But at the time, I was not aware of that. Sorry you feel that way, and good luck, guys. Well, I mean, that's that one. We're not telling you to leave the chat. I mean, we're just telling you what we feel about on our perspective. You told us what you felt like. We told you in return how we felt. So, I mean, that's your choice. I mean, if you want to leave, that's up to you. But I mean, personally, I'm with the enforcer on that one. It seems like no matter what we say these days, it's not everybody. Because by the way, most people that watch the show, they could care less. They're just trying to listen to the news. But some people that are highly political out there will take our statements, like for example, the naming of a fighter jet, like the F-47. They'll take that to mean, oh, these guys have gone totally one side or the other. They've gone political. It's like, no, you don't have to go political to simply have a comment on something like a fighter jet name. That's just a bit silly, honestly. I mean, that's just my perspective on it. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you for the support, Kevin. And we're not saying, you have to leave, but I hope you see where we're coming from, that it is getting really tiresome these days to have to deal with people trying to insinuate that we're political. It's been happening for years, but to be entirely honest, ever since Trump's become president, it's been ramped up to 10. Like, everyone's trying to get us on something, somewhere, and make us into something political, so that way we're a target for them. So when you throw in a super chat like that we take that as, here's another person who is once again trying to insinuate that we are a traitor to the state, we're conducting treason because we said that the number 47 is clearly has some sort of a bias in being picked. That's the only way we can take it. It's something that's wildly tiresome. Like I like if you leave over it, I'm very sorry about that. I thank you for supporting the channel. I thank you for liking it, but at the same time, like you gotta get where we're coming from. I mean, it's insanely tired. Like right before you sent in that super chat, we got some guy on Twitter for the umpteenth million time, and now he's claiming that we're anti-Americans. Like I threw $10,000 at orchestrating music, patriotic American music, to be a hater and traitor of the state. Like it just gets tiresome at some point, because we can't do anything. Like no one can do anything anymore without it being considered political. At all. Like we can't sit here and say something like, that seems kind of tasteless to name it the F-47. It's clearly supposed to be for the 47th president. Like that's just honestly tasteless. We can't even say that without people trying to make that sound political. Like when we said the balloon flying from China over America that Biden wouldn't shoot down is a bad idea and it should be shot down immediately. We didn't get a lot of pushback on that, to be entirely honest. A lot of people said, yeah, I would agree with that. And we didn't get any pushback for that. And that was a criticism of Biden. He was a Democrat. We criticized a Democrat. No one really batted that much of an eye. We criticized the naming convention of an aircraft, or we criticize anything in the slightest these days anymore, And I gotta be honest, like the Trump cult just goes insane. Like I don't know what it is. Like we could criticize Biden day in and day out. The backlash was minimal from folks. Now we can say anything minimally against Trump and be fair, like we were with Biden, and criticize Biden on his foreign policy standpoints and other things. We do the same thing to Trump, and then people want to come out of the woodworks and make us out to be anti-American traitors. It's a very annoying thing to me. I thank you for the support, but if you don't see where we're coming from and you leave the channel, that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I really just, I really can't do much more about that, to be entirely honest with you. But still, thank you for the support. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I would love to get into an analysis of why it is the case that certain political beliefs, drive people to be more aggressive than others. Because that's actually a whole topic that you can study in political science all the way. And I have the answers, but I can't get into it because it gets political. And it's not inherently against one side or the other. I know some people are about to say, "Oh, you're about to jump on this person or whatever," because there are people like are really much supporting them. No, that's not the case. It's just. Oh man, I wish I could get into it, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I know better. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat here. This one goes to Chris Esparza, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Chris, for that support. And dang, man, come on, man. What you got me reading? He said, and also this is his first super chat, by the way. He threw in his first one ever, and he's going to put me through the ringer on the first one. He said, "Rawr, I'm a dinosaur. Haha. I got Matt to be a dinosaur." Yes. Yes, you did. He said, "LLT, LSA, question from the chat. Also, thank you for everything you guys do."
And thank you for your first support to the channel ever, Chris. And also nice to hear that you're a dinosaur. I like to hear that. And I also got to say, long live the Lee Spring Army. We will make sure to take a question from the chat. And thank you for enjoying what we do. We try our best to make sure that it's good. We have people attacking us from all ends these days. If y'all just knew what we had to deal with in the Twitter DMs, like it's just so annoying. Like it really just grinds my gears because we try and stay as neutral as we can. It does not matter. People are going to try and make us into whatever their enemy is. Like honestly, this channel is the ink blot test at this point. Like we are as neutral as we can possibly be. As down the middle as we can possibly be. The only thing that we ever put out analysis on is foreign policy, and we've had very clear objectives and have criticized everyone fairly over the same issues for 3 years. And then all of a sudden, people come on here and like they are the Kool-Aid drinkers to the max. They're Kool-Aid drinking Republicans or Democrats, and they mean that because we do not pick their side, they are going to conjure up some image in their mind that we are whatever they hate. So if they're a Republican, we're a liberal, and if they're a liberal, we're a Republican, and they're going to just try and hate us from that point on. It's just so tiresome. It's a tiresome thing to deal with. But I'm happy to know that a lot of people actually do enjoy this channel. Because it gets fatiguing to deal with the former a great deal. But still, we will make sure to get the live chat in your honor. And I got to thank you once again. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question is going to go to Rutro, who says, "Was Heathrow retribution for Engels?"
Possibly, maybe, but it'll be really hard to tell until the future. So I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least the best I can for now. It's not really a good answer, but it might be the best one I can give for the moment. But still, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Jenna, last name Tolls once again, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Jenna, for the third support of the night. They said, "We're on an orb floating in a limitless void, spinning around a fireball right now. Also, we don't know how we got here. What the hell we doing fighting?"
Well, it's just the way of the world, honestly. When you try and put it into a cosmic sense, it sounds like there isn't really a point in fighting. But when you actually think on a global sense, there is a decent reason to actually fight for the large part on certain kinds of topics. But I do think
money.
Money's one. Strategic standing is another. Prosperity, all those sorts of things. Resources, those are important things to fight over down here. But I hope that does address that somewhat well. I think it wants to give her support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Random Game Clips, who puts in a 5 and says, "Wendigo."
Oh, that's that scary creature thing. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And we are always scared of the Wendigo creature. That thing is a scary beast for sure. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Philip Fixes LSA, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much, Philip, for that $5 support as well. And he said, America removing women from combat roles. Does that include fighter pilots? And do you know when the first woman became a fighter pilot? Slava LSA, and add-on, please. Does this mean that the AI co-pilots will have to have dude voices?
I'm not really sure on that. Also, I haven't heard about that, to be entirely honest, about women being removed from combat roles. So I have to declare ignorance on that part for now. And unfortunately, I do not know when a woman first became a fighter pilot, actually, to be entirely honest. I don't really follow stuff like that, which I consider minutia. Like, for example, like when... well, let me see here. Like when the first Puchgev Cobra was pulled, I can never tell you that. Like I know that it came about in the 80s, but that would be about it. But still, I thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. But I largely have to declare ignorance on all that because I haven't really heard much about it and don't really know a lot about that, at least at the moment. But still, thank you once again. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And I heard your esophagus almost collapse over there.
Yeah.
But our next one goes to Drew H0208, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Drew, as well, for that support. And they said Cult of Matt has been under heavy train talk assault by Cult of Andrew. Cult of Matt needs to ramp up car talk, arms production. You're right. And at least they're maintaining relations on space station gun talk. And honestly, I do need to ramp up the car talk quite a bit because that can compete with the train talk. If we combine the both of them, we can extend the stream until 2 a.m. in the morning. But unfortunately, what say you?
Thank you for the support, and I suppose that's the case. But beyond that, sadly, we really can't get into that tonight because we would be stretching out this stream massively to do a lot of train talk or car talk. But train talk and car talk is pretty fun. I honestly like both of them, and I don't really dislike car talk at all. It's actually pretty fun to talk about them. But still, thank you once again for support and help with this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, I did a little research here as I was curious. I don't think women are being removed from combat roles, Philip. I think that might be maybe not true based on what I'm seeing right here. It looks like they're still in combat roles and there's no plans to remove them from it. It looked like some women have been removed from top brass roles in the military, but not because they were women necessarily, just because apparently they had something wrong with their political stance, I would assume, to be perfectly straight up honest with you. That's probably why they were removed. But let's see here. So yeah, I think that might not actually be the case. So I think the women's are okay. I think they can keep flying the planes. But anyways, jumping into our next one. This one goes to Rad Doctor, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Rad Doctor, for the support. He said, finally, I can give my radiological opinion on the show. That CT was normal on the images that I saw.
I'd have to say, I thank you for the support. And also, Matthew, do you know what CT stands for? Because unfortunately, that's eluding me right now.
That would be a CAT scan.
Oh, well, I thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running, and very interesting to hear. Very interesting to hear. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Actually, that stands for computerized topography, I think. CT. That's it's still known as I think it's still known as a CAT scan, but he's apparently a radiologist, so he would know that for certain. Very fascinating. We have radiologists in here too. We have every type of doctor on the whole doctor roster. And in fact, just out of curiosity, I believe the radiologists are some of the top paid doctors out there, I think. Because I remember I looked at becoming a doctor one time. I was like, what's the type of doctors? And I saw every single time, it's like radiologists get paid bank for reading the scans and all that stuff. So I was like, wow, look at that. A good reason not to go to medical school is because you're trying to make bank, because you're not going to probably make it through, honestly. I think he could probably tell you that as well. But anyways, jumping in to our next super chat here. This one goes to Kevin once again, who puts in another super chat. This time it's a 50. And thank you very much, Kevin, for the support once more. I said, guys, it wasn't personal. It was more of a thing that back in the day, or in my day, that stuff didn't happen. If I'm wrong, then I am wrong. I'll admit it. And I checked the statements, and you are right. I apologize. I won't hold up the comments anymore.
I thank you for the support, Kevin. And of course, I don't want you to think that I have any hard feelings against you. It's just that I once again, I got to stress, I hope you know where we're coming from here. When we run this channel, to give a little bit of a perspective, there are about 4 million people who watch this channel every month. Most of those people are individual people, like they're different people. And out of those 4 million people, all of them know or largely get the concept that we're supposed to be politically neutral here. And I only make comments on kind of like a politically neutral level. Like on foreign policy, I have my objectives and my ideas of what it should look like. And whoever the president is, they're either within that framework or they're not. And if they're not in that framework, I say they're not doing the right thing. And if they are, I'm saying they're doing the right thing. And when people come in and make a comment like you did, it comes off to us like the 1 in a million comments that we get where people are trying to insinuate that we're political when we're not trying to be. And I completely understand that wasn't like that back in your day. But with a lot of things are different. Like back in your day, people didn't go around renaming major gulfs or waterways around the United States really for the hell of it. But things are kind of different with that these days, and that's why I found that annoying today. Because like I don't care if people like the president or dislike the president, but you usually do things and name them after people after they're dead. Like, for example, the USS Harry S. Truman wasn't named by Harry S. Truman after himself in honor of himself. It was named posthumously after Harry S. Truman had died in honor of him as a former president of the United States. That's always how everything's been done with naming conventions for anything. So if they wanted to do F-47 in honor of the 47th president of the United States, that should be done decades down the road by some other president in posthumous honor to this president, because that's been the precedent that's been laid out with those kinds of naming conventions. Or if they wanted to name an aircraft carrier after him, you would name an aircraft carrier after him after he's dead. Like say, his term ends in a couple of years. He dies about 10 years later from natural causes or whatever. And then you name an aircraft carrier after him about 10 years after that's being built. And it's like that would make sense. That's how it works. And it's like, I'm not saying, I'm not someone who says that, oh no, nothing can be named after him, all of his honors had to be stripped. Like, I don't like him, I don't hate him, but at the same time, I know how things are supposed to work with those sorts of deals. And naming something the F-47, like now you've seen after the 47th president, and he's the 47th president, and it's happening while he's in office by his own ordainment. It's like that just goes in the face of all tradition of how we've done these things. And that's what I kind of find annoying with that sort of a deal. That's honestly what I find annoying about renaming anything, or naming conventions at all. Like, naming conventions mean nothing, but just knowing the rules that go around them, and then kind of like seeing like the flagrant like toss it to the wind sort of a mindset with that whole deal. It annoys me because I'm kind of someone who cares about the names of things. Like, if it was that way, it stays that way. Like with the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of Mexico. I'm never going to not call it that. So renaming it the Gulf of America is kind of silly. It's kind of like renaming Mount McKinley Denali. Like, the name was now changed back on that. But it's like, what was the point of changing it in the first place? Everyone already knew it as Mount McKinley, and everyone knew Fort Benning is Fort Benning. So, changing the names of those things just doesn't make a lot of sense. Everyone knew it. But with this, it's not about what people knew, it's about naming something now. And it's like, you never name something in honor of yourself. Like, you just don't. And calling it the F-47 is numbering the aircraft in honor of himself. Like, that just comes off as wildly narcissistic. There's really no other way to look at it. Because if Biden was president and this aircraft was unveiled and he dubbed it the F-46, my answer would be the same. I'd be like, that is just wildly narcissistic to do that. And it just doesn't look that good. It would be like, it's kind of like, to be honest, it's kind of like the silly things that you would hear about where, like, I'm not even gonna kid around. Like, this is where you'd hear about it because this is the only example I can have. Like, in a kid's cartoon, when a kid would like have like a magic fairy give him the power to be the ruler of the world, and the kid would start building statues of himself around the whole world. It's kind of like the same thing. It just comes off as like cartoonishly narcissistic. And that's what I don't like about it. Because, like, if I was the president of the United States, I wouldn't name a damn thing after myself at all. Like, if people wanted to do that after I died, have all at it. But I would never do that because that would come off wildly narcissistic. And honestly, why in the world would I be deserving of giving myself the honor of having something named after me? So it's not an honor that was earned or an honor given by the respect of the people. It's an honor I bestowed upon myself because of my admiration for myself. And then it's undeserved at that point. It would kind of be like giving myself a Medal of Honor. It's like, well, I didn't do anything valorous enough for one. It's like, and also on top of that, just because I think I'm brave for doing what I do, it doesn't mean I deserve one. That ought to be decided by others. That's kind of how I look at it. But I do thank you for the support, Kevin, and I'm glad that you did see that. But I don't want you to think that I was just going ham on you the first time around, like with the no do calls, because we've been around the mill. We're about to go around the mill with that for the umpteenth time on a Twitter DM here before long. Like probably after the show, Matthew will probably be dealing with that. But we just
Why? Why me? Why?
because you're the Twitter guy. Like you're the Twitter guy.
Damn.
Like I'm sorry. But we just get tired of dealing with people who try and insinuate that we're political, because we aren't trying to be political. But anyways, with that, I do thank you for the support. I hope that does address it well. I hope you see where we're coming from, and I hope you know that there was no personal, like it's not anything personal. It's just more like a knee-jerk reaction to seeing something that looks like something we've dealt with a lot. So I hope you know that. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I thank you for sticking around. And I also thank you for looking into that and researching that a little bit to see what I was saying. But still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I'm just discovering that Jenna Tolles in the live chat is getting like my favorite track cars in the world right now. That Jenna Tolles is getting a GT3 RS, which is a track version of the GT3, which is a super sick Porsche, by the way. And they literally just had a GT4 RS before they got the GT3 RS, which is crazy because the GT4 RS is really cool. That the engine's literally right behind your head, and there's no like barrier in between the engine and the actual cockpit of the car. So the engine noise is absolutely out of this world crazy, like the way it sounds. It sounds tremendous. So they went from that epic car to a GT3 RS, and apparently they track the car once a month, which is insane, by the way. It's like my dream life being able to like go and track a car like that on a racetrack once a month. So Jenna Tolles is living the dream out here, honestly. But with that, we are now moving on before I start rabbit holing about those vehicles. Well, Enforcer, real quick, pull it up. Pull up a GT4 RS real quick. I just want to see it.
All right, and let's take a look at it. And there it is.
There it is. Look at that. That is the Cayman GT, which is known as the GT4 RS. Very cool car. That one's got the carbon hood on it and the spoiler on the back. I think it comes standard on these, I think. I'm not really sure, though. But very, very cool car. But the GT3 RS, pull that one up real quick, Jamie.
Let's see here. The GT3 RS. There you go.
Look at that. Now that is even cooler. Honestly, this is the big daddy right here. This is right here. There's a bigger one as well. There's the GT2 RS, but that one's just obscene. And also, these are wildly expensive, by the way. Like these cars are not cheap whatsoever. Look at that. You got to admit now, that is clean. Like the gold wheels, the color, the spoiler, that is clean.
That is pretty clean. That is a pretty nice car, I will admit.
Honestly, man, that thing sounds fantastic. I've heard these in real life. If you put a straight pipe on, I don't know if Jenna can do that because it's probably against the track rules. But if you straight piped it, man, that thing sounds good. Like it literally rumbles the ground. It sounds so good. A 6-cylinder has never sounded as good as it does in that Porsche.
Man, I would bet. But with that, I hope we addressed that well. I want to make sure we keep on time here because we have to make sure that we're able to get up a little bit earlier tomorrow. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Also, by the way, just to let y'all know, I have not been getting any sleep for the past 2 nights. I've kind of had a little bit of a thing going on where I just wake up in the middle of the night with kind of like not really a pain, but like some sort of pressure in my chest, and it just wakes me up and I can hardly go to sleep. So I've been getting no sleep, and I'm honestly exhausted right now. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, someone said, Matt, do you race? No, sadly, I don't. It's track days and all that whole thing is very expensive. And sadly, that's just not in the budget right now, to be perfectly honest. So, no, it's something that I would like to do one day, but sadly, not right now. But I have seen other people do it. Maybe I can track a motorcycle, though, because that's a little bit more easier to afford. But I don't think, honestly, I'll be doing that anytime soon because it's really dangerous. I don't want to get mangled. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat, this one goes to B-Man, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, B-Man, for that support. They said, one rotten apple can spoil a basket of good apples, and grandma talking.
And I have to thank you for the support, and that is some old classic Southern wisdom right there, I'd say. And so with that, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Rad Doctor said Wysock package. You're right. That's right. That's the one with the carbon hood on it. So I was actually incorrect on that. But anyways, jumping into the next one, this one goes to Terrence Custer, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Terrence, for that support. He said, does the U.S. Space Force have anything to equal the supposed Chinese satellites that can dogfight? And what weapons does the Space Force have?
We don't know the full volume of weapons that the Space Force has. Most of their abilities in space are largely classified due to reasons of national security. So we probably have something comparable or even better than what the Chinese have. It's just that would never be publicly known or stated. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And I thank you once again for support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh my goodness! And real quick, I'm not going to drag this on too long, by the way. But Jenna sent the build for that GT3 RS. Insane. Honestly, I am just like jealous out of this world. That is a sick build right there. That is crazy. Straight from Germany. So yes, I'm very jealous of you, Jenna. I hope you have fun with that because I bet that is a hell of a car to track. Because I bet that is fun. So I would love to see it. Maybe a video. Maybe if you have a YouTube channel or if you can create one and put track day videos on there, I would love to watch those. I'll be your main viewer, your main fan. But anyways, jumping on to the next one. This one goes to S. Pedro, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, S. Pedro, for that support. And it said, to a prior answer, I was stationed at the station that houses the F-111 and the F-114. And I know it's not a fighter, but a boxer, but...
And thank you for supporting. That's really cool to hear that you were actually stationed around F-111s and F-114s. That's incredibly cool, actually. And I have to say, I envy you. That would have been an incredibly cool posting right there. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Nightmare Before Christmas, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Nightmare Before Christmas, for that support. And I said, sorry, I meant the prince going shows people we already have troops on Russia's border, normalizing, sending them to Ukraine's peacekeepers in the UK and LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And I'd have to say, peacekeepers in Ukraine is a necessity post-war, so I would agree with you around that. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dunkel X, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Dunkel, for the support. They said, you will not escape me, Enforcer Matt. I said, what kind of dinosaur would you be? Honestly, if I had to pick a dinosaur, I'd probably pick the Velociraptor. If that's the one that figured out how to open the door handles in Jurassic Park, I would be that one. Yeah, I'll be that one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be a pterodactyl because of Turu from that show. I forgot the name of the show.
Toru!
Yeah, I would be a pterodactyl just for that reason. But still, thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Thomas D. Orazio, who puts in a $2 donation. And thank you very much, Thomas, for that support. He said, keep up the amazing work you do, Jens.
Hey, and thank you so much for supporting the kind words. And we will try our best to make sure that we can keep up the good work and keep this thing rolling. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a 2 as well. And thank you very much, Jack, as well, for the support. He said the F-47 Thunderbolt 3 as a callback to the P-47. That's why.
I didn't hear that it was called the Thunderbolt 3. And also, the that would be a little bit weird because the A-10 is the Thunderbolt 2. So, if that is the case, why in the world now so it moves from being a ground-pounding, kind of like a close air support aircraft to an air superiority fighter. I didn't hear that. Let me go check that. P-47. Well, actually, let me go type in the F-47 jet. So we'll put in the F-47 jet. And let's see. It doesn't seem that anyone's calling it a Thunderbolt 3. And we do not know if it will be called a Thunderbolt 3. No one said that today. So it would be a little bit of a leap to say that it is a Thunderbolt because no one's even come out with an official name for the thing. So let's see what Defense News had on it. Let's see. Be designated. Let's see. It has let's see. Trump from most advanced. Let's see. Reshaping the future. Blah blah blah. We recognize the importance of design. Blah 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 blah. Let's see. Alongside or the F-47. What are these? So you are right, Matthew. You are right. Apparently, they're going to be building smaller drones that'll be the wingman to the F-47s.
Is that it?
Apparently, these are what is being built kind of like as a concept for them.
Interesting. That's still a little larger than I thought it was going to be because obviously that's not the size of the F-47, but it's still a little bit larger than I thought. But it does look to be jet powered, so it should be able to keep up. Yeah, and also they're planning on using those as like basically missiles, I'm assuming. Like attritable style drones?
I think that they're supposed to be air support, because the F-47 is an air superiority thing, so it's not really like a big missile or anything like that. I think these things carry air-to-air missiles and are able to fire them at targets, I believe, but I don't really know for sure. I could be wrong on that. But
Yeah,
really,
if they're using something that large and it looks like probably that costly, I'd imagine that little drone right there is probably costly. As an attritable style drone, that's not going to be sustainable in a war.
yeah, I would agree. But let's see. I'm trying to see if anyone talked about the naming convention for it. It doesn't appear that they do. Um, but still, I hope that addresses that the best we can. I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Amrid, who puts in a 2 as well. And thank you very much, Amrid, for that support. They said F-47. How about the crying? Let me pull up what this is first before I say it. I'm feeling paranoid tonight for some reason. Let's see here. Okay, I think they misspelled something. They said, what about the crying cheetah?
That's an interesting one. I don't know why it'd be called that, but that's still an interesting one. I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Big Taro, who puts in a 2 and says, F-47, Doge fired me. well. At least they didn't fire the development team, at least. Instead, they threw Boeing a bone. Throwing Boeing. What do you know? It rhymes. But Enforcer, what say you?
That's an interesting idea. And you know, they have to pass around the benefits. They have to help out a little. You know, it's not all about cutting the budget. Sometimes it's just about reappropriating it, I suppose. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Jack Ray, as well for that support. He said he'd throw the circuit breaker, laughing face.
He threw the circuit breaker indeed, I suppose. Cutting out that electricity, perhaps. But still, thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to S. Pedro, who puts in a 2 once more and says, sorry, on mobile, F-114 is a bomber.
And thank you for the support, and we'll go and pull it up. F-114, and the F-114, let's see here. Let me go show this to y'all. Let's see here. The F-114, the only thing I can find is this F-114 model right there. But there's the F-117, if that's what you were talking about, or the F-111, which is also a bomber as well. But still, thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and holy cow! Like I gotta make a comment on this again. Jenna last name told us to send me pictures of these track days and stuff like that. Insane. Like I'm not gonna lie, I've never seen like a collection like this. If that is all of Jenna's cars right there, that is insane to see that. By the way, like a hell of a collection. They got a Godzilla GTR. It looked like if that was their GTR. Also, the GT4 spec was really cool, and that new GT3 spec they're getting is also sick as well. Like, I'm honestly very jealous, Jenna. That is a hell of a collection right there, I must say. That is very cool. But anyways, we are now jumping on before we run out of time here, as we're running out of time right now. We're going to actually jump into our live chat questions, which are fresh out of super chats. And once again, huge shout out to everybody once again for helping support the channel and keep it running every single night. And we do appreciate that very, very much. But of course, jumping right into our Morse code decoders of the stream, we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsaps, Royal Fluffiness, Airbell Garbo, Joni Dog, and Norm Pritchett. And they said Morse decode for day 1122. Russians losing the Belgorod area so badly, it's renamed Helgorod. LLT-LSA.
And ding, 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 shh. And that's the sound of money. You all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct time and time again, because y'all have continued to make sure to get that Morse code message correct pretty much day in and day out. So a huge congratulations to y'all. And with that, we are going to be moving on into the final 3 questions of the night. And so we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one is going to go to let's see here. Let me pick the ones we have not answered just yet. This one goes to LSA Up Guy, who says, "What's the chance that Iran's nuclear sites could be damaged and maybe critically by an earthquake?"
The chances, at least for the 4.6, aren't really that high. A 4.6 is some minor tremors, but probably nothing significant enough to actually damage their refining and centrifugal abilities at those facilities. So I generally assume that the damage or the impact would be minimal, if any at all, from that earthquake that happened today. And so with that, I hope that addresses that well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to, let's see here. This one goes to, let's see here, Peter Schnassel, who says most allies bought the F-35s based on the belief that America would be an ally, and the USA and Lockheed Martin control base coding and software updates. And Peter says, why trust America now?
That's a good question. It seems like a lot of countries are starting to ask why they should trust the United States now, but others are going to have to be saddled with the F-35 because they have it, and there's not really a refund policy on them. So, that's a good question. And the best thing I could say to that is some countries are already saying they might not be able to trust the United States, but the other ones are kind of forced to keep them because they already have them. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in from what I understand currently. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Snowy, who says, whatever happened to the Wagners at the border near Poland and Belarus, and do they still exist?
The Wagner largely ceased to exist a while ago. They were integrated into the Rosguardia, and now we understand that they've even been fractured farther than that. They've pretty much been cast throughout the entirety of the Russian armed forces and have ceased to exist as any kind of an entity or a unit. So they're not really around in Belarus anymore. They probably may be, though at least the ones who made it into Poland, may still be operating in support of the Russian state, but they are not affiliated with the Wagner PMC in any way, shape, or form at this point, if they are even affiliated with the Russians any longer once they made it into Europe. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for all of y'all. Tonight, we had a peak viewership of 9.5 thousand people and an overall viewership of 62,000 people as we're rounding out the stream. We are very honored and appreciative of knowing that all of y'all continue to choose this channel as your primary source of news. And we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraine, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for watching tonight. And of course, big thanks to all 62,000 people that joined us today on the stream, and also the 3,200 likes that we got as well. And we do appreciate that very much. And thank you all very much for supporting the channel once again tonight. And also tomorrow, I believe I'll be doing a short war video tomorrow if there is enough news to cover midday. So be sure to tune in for that, and also tune in for tomorrow's nightly war news stream at 10 p.m. Eastern once again for the rest of the news throughout the day. But with that, of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.